across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, there you are. Welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000. That's 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, August the 18th. Here's what's coming up. A strange spectacle in Trafalgar Square last night as a crowd gathered to grieve over a lie. A crowd of around 1,000, or tens of thousands if you believe The Guardian, were there to pay tribute not to the truth of who Jason Arday was, but to the self-serving fabrication they have built around this troubled young fantasist. To Diane Abbott and the Stand Against Racism grifters, he is still the eminent man of letters who became the youngest black professor ever to grace the dreaming spires of Cambridge University, a brilliant, shining genius destroyed by a vicious, racist media witch hunt. The hand-wringing speeches at the deeply strange vigil, all conspicuously avoiding the tricky topic of his fantastical fibs about running 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg, of raising millions of pounds for charities that have never heard of him, of starring in a TV documentary film 20 years before he was born, of not being able to speak until he was 18, and many more hilarious inventions in Jason's non-stop torrent of tosh. To even mention any of these laughable lies was apparently racist. But were the strident non-racists so noisily celebrating their lack of prejudice actually patronising poor, mixed-up Mr. Arday? Has he become Britain's answer to George Floyd, a carefully constructed victim of racism hero who these people are determined to venerate regardless of the truth? 0344 499 1000. In other news, a stag, a magnificent stag in London's Richmond Park, attacks a family enjoying a picnic. So they shoot the poor thing dead. Why? Because he should have known better than to disturb human beings when they're dining al fresco. Did this picnic infringement really warrant the extreme punishment of execution? Really? Why did they shoot it dead? Just because it disturbed some bloke's picnic? Bit over the top, isn't it, to say the least? We'll talk to someone who shares my fury about that later on. 0344 499 1000. Also, on today's action-packed show, Angela Rayner continues the government's spiteful campaign against the middle classes by relaxing the rules on traveller sites. Coming soon to a field near you. If not a massive migrant camp, an illegal caravan park. Thanks, Labour. 0344 499 1000, plus the tiny Indian restaurant in Scotland that Zia Yusuf accuses of helping 42 skilled workers and their families get visas. Pakistan threatens to stop taking migrants amid the escalating row over serial child rapist Shabir Ahmed. And finally, Lord Charles Althorpe announces he is writing a money-spinning book about his sister Princess Diana called Swan Song, Diana, My Sister. It will be released next month ahead of the 30th anniversary of her death in a Paris car crash. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday afternoon together. Let's go straight over to my first guest. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, a survivor of the wonderful world of academia, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. How you doing? All right.
I'm all right. I want to talk about this strange spectacle in Trafalgar Square last night. These people gathering to mourn. Did they gather to mourn Jason Arday, or did they gather to mourn the creation they have formed around Jason Arday? They weren't grieving for the truth. They were grieving for their version of the truth. Very, very strange speeches all night, including, of course, Diane Abbott, the Stand Up Against Racism crowd, and Lord Woolley, who is the head of Homerton College in Cambridge. He's particularly furious about what was said. Now, I'm going to play you now something really enlightening, I think. I'm going to play you Lord Woolley's actual speech that he made last night at Trafalgar Square to a crowd that I was watching the TV news. It was estimated at about 1,000. The Guardian was talking about tens of thousands, 30,000. You know, you decide which one you think's probably true. Anyway, Lord Woolley addressed the crowd, and this is his speech before it was edited. Have a listen to this.
This is tough for me, as it's tough for all of you and the hundreds and thousands of people in the UK and around the world who are appalled by the public assassination of Jason Arday. The lynching. The lynching.
The lynching. He wasn't lynched, was he? It was not a public assassination. What happened was the media found out about his fantastical lies and as their jaws dropped, discovered to their horror and their amusement that the cretins at Cambridge University had chosen to believe this guy's torrent of tosh. And this guy, Lord Woolley, calls it a lynching, a public assassination. Well, that was his speech, but when it got to us and other media outlets, it appeared to have been edited. This came via the Press Association, and this is what we received.
This is tough for me, as it's tough for all of you and the hundreds and thousands of people in the UK and around the world who are appalled. I want to change the world.
Did you spot what was missing there? They took out all the lynching and the public assassination stuff. We've asked the Press Association Media, PA Media, for a comment. As yet, no response. But someone somewhere has sanitised what Lord Woolley had to say. I think what Lord Woolley had to say was a sensationalist claptrap, to say the least. This is the guy, head of Homerton College in Cambridge, who was called for a full investigation and inquiry into the media coverage of Jason Arday. It's not the media's fault. The media has nothing to answer for here. This is Cambridge University's fault. And yet these people last night are gathering around the lie that Jason Arday's tragedy was caused by the racist media. That is simply not true. I think his tragedy was caused by him realising that his lies had been exposed. His reputation was gone. He'd lost everything. On a human level, I feel terribly sorry for him, and I feel terribly sorry for his family. He was clearly a vulnerable young man prone to utter fantasy. He should never have been put in that position. It isn't the media's fault. His tragedy is not the media's fault. And yet there we have it. All the great and the good, Diane Abbott, Lord Woolley, the Stand Against Racism crowd, all getting up, making speeches. This is the vicious, racist media. They're constructing their own truth. They are grieving for a lie they invented. Extraordinary.
It's absolutely extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it in this increasingly absurd world that we live in. I mean, that really does take biscuit. Lynching, really, that is not just absurd claptrap. That is dangerously absurd claptrap. That language is dangerous, and that's why they removed it. I mean, what they did initially was construct a hero for their fantasy narrative.
He's a victim of racism hero, isn't he? Just like he is our George Floyd.
Well,
just as in America, they invented lies around that guy. He was a convicted bank robber, a fentanyl addict who was once arrested for beating up his pregnant girlfriend. This guy was no hero, but because he was killed by a alleged racist cop, he became a cult hero among the fashionable classes. This is what's happening with Arday, isn't it?
Well, I think originally they created this superhero who survived absolutely everything. And now they've turned him into a tragic hero because it suits their narrative. And they will, forgive the awful imagery, but they will just use him. They will pick the carcass until it's bone dry. I think there's something here that we do have to think about as well, the nature of his lies. Okay, he said that he had testicular cancer. He said that he had a brain tumor. I'm assuming he had neither one of those things. Now, in this society, it used to be frowned upon to lie about having cancer. Now, it seems, you are celebrated as a hero of diversity and inclusion. There is such a lot that's happening here. We are completely divorced from reality. I mean, they're so divorced from reality that some of them got his name wrong. That's how ridiculous.
They kept calling him James, didn't they? Yeah.
They kept calling him James, and Diane Abbott called him Jason Arday. So they just, you know, that's how much they value this person. They value him as a commodity, something with currency within the ideological narrative. That's all he ever was to them. But again, as I say, Kev, let's focus on the nature of his lies, and let's focus on, you know, some of the people who suffered because of this. His students certainly suffered. My guess is his family are suffering massively now. This is down to him, but also this is down to the people who put him in this position. He should not have been a professor at Cambridge. If they would have looked at his PhD and said, this is riddled with plagiarism, let's stop here, let's stop his career here, and let him do something that he was much more, you know, suited to doing, he would be alive today. So it's lies that have put him here, and it's lies that have killed him.
Yeah, and all these this strange crowd in Trafalgar Square, as you say, they've invented their version of Jason Arday. All these speeches, what they referred to was his PhD, apparently a load of old poppycock, in which my favourite bit of it, he tries to say paltry, as in not very much, P-A-L-T-R-Y, but spells it wrongly in terms of chickens, P-O-U-L-T-R-Y. This was not a particularly educated man, to say the least. 3 GCSEs, some kind of trumped-up nonsense from Roehampton University, and then straight into Cambridge, where the Cambridge professors constructed their Jason Arday, the brilliant youngest black professor ever to grace the dreaming spires of that great, or once great, educational institution. They invented their Jason Arday. These losers last night inventing their Jason Arday. The true Jason Arday, the real Jason Arday, was a very troubled, vulnerable young man, prone to making up complete fantasies about himself, and he needed help, not to be promoted.
Precisely, and there's something else as well. They're petitioning for something called Arday's Law, which is to limit the press from looking at anything that anybody's done to, you know, for a limited period of time. So because this story has run and run and run, mainly because of the left-wing wokerati, they keep piling on with it. There should be no investigation after a certain amount of time for an individual. Now, this is patently nonsense, Kev, because if somebody murders somebody and then 6 months later we find out they've murdered another 6 people, but we're not allowed to report upon it because, you know, because somehow that might be offensive, then this stuff is just ludicrous. But what it does, it represents, it reflects their vision of reality and their, as I say, their divorce from reality. And it's frightening for all of us.
Yeah, what the media has done is they've held Cambridge University's proverbial feet to the flame. They have exposed their craven promotion of this guy for personal reasons, so they could all virtue signal about having a young, black, brilliant professor. The whole story has been brilliantly revealed and exposed by the media, and all the grifters there last night, all the people inventing their own version of Jason Arday with no thought to who he actually was. They are now calling for a press crackdown. They can go to hell. They really, really can. The press did nothing wrong here. Just before you go, let me get your thoughts on this, Philip. Andy Burnham, classic bit of Andy Burnham. I don't know if we got the video ready, but, you know, still no plan to stop the boats, still no plan to keep PC Andrew Harper's killers behind bars, still no plan to do anything about the cost of living crisis and all these other important issues. But he's found another transport issue to drone on about. Check this out.
More local buses are coming under public control. In the West Midlands, bus services in private hands were at risk of being lost. So we've backed the Mayor, Richard Parker, to take bold action to save them by bringing them immediately into public ownership. This is absolutely massive. Government and local leaders have joined forces to keep vital bus
That's
services.
enough of that. Shut up, Burnham. Don't be so boring. He's always going on about buses. There's another video out there going, oh, I've discovered this thing about before 9:30 a.m. disabled people are able to pay full level fares. That always struck me as wrong, and I'm going to put it right. As if the rest of us are thinking about this. No, Andy, we want you to stop the bloody boats. Do something not that you want to do. How about you change the habit of a lifetime and do something the people want you to do? Just a thought.
Yeah, he's talking about rush hour there, isn't he? And he's talking, you know, crowded public transport, woefully inadequate public transport that is completely crowded. People with disability tickets don't go to work. They travel for free. They don't go to work. They don't need to travel in rush hour and make life much more uncomfortable for the rest of us. It's one of those stupid things that isn't thought through. It's a quick gain. Oh, isn't Andy? It's our Andy. Isn't he lovely? Isn't he kind?
Yeah,
No, it's not. We don't need it. The people who are disabled don't need it. And the rest of us who are stuck on the Jubilee line at 5 o'clock in the afternoon going to London Bridge definitely don't need it either. So it's again, you can see after 6 months of all of these nonsense little things, life will be so much more uncomfortable for us, and the big things will just be ignored. They will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the country will just grind to a halt at 9:30 at rush hour when nobody wants it.
You're right. He is looking for minor issues that he can announce he's going to do something about.
It's little PR.
He's inventing problems and then saying, look, this problem that you had never once thought about in your entire life, I've solved it. Oh, great. Well, I hadn't thought about it, so I don't really care. But that is clearly what he's doing. And since you mentioned the Jubilee line, Patrick, let me mention that last night I was making my way home on that fine line, and the train stopped in the middle of a tunnel. 15 minutes we sat there, no announcement. I mean, it's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, tells us that every journey matters to him. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, it's bad enough that, you know, you're in a wheelchair and you're disabled. Now you're going to have to wait half an hour. You're going to get all the stuff that we have to deal with as well, you know?
This guy, he just deflects away from the real issues. It's getting to be a problem, I think. Philip, great to have you on the show. Come on again very soon. That's the magnificent Philip Kisley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Next up, we're going to be joined by a former Labour MP, now Reform UK, Simon Danjuk. We're going to get his take on that bizarre spectacle of the vigil for Jason Arday last night in Trafalgar Square. We'll play you some more of those speeches that were made. Every single one of them. No, they all said he was cleared of plagiarism. What happened was he did his PhD at Roehampton University, whatever the hell that is, and it was in PE or something like that. But anyway, he was accused of plagiarism, of lifting wholesale great chunks of other people's PhDs. And he was eventually sort of cleared. He was near the knuckle on it, very near the line, but they said it was just about within acceptable limits of borrowing from other people's learning, as it were. So they all said, no, he was cleared of that. He was only just cleared. And I think in the light of what we subsequently discovered, the guy cheated in his PhD. That's good. That's certain. That's certain. That's the kind of person he was. But none of those speeches last night mentioned the 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg, starring in a programme that was filmed 22 years before he was born, and so on and so forth. Being a victim of locked-in disease until he was 18, couldn't speak. That turns out to be not true. He was just a massive fantasist. So none of those speakers referred to his torrent of tosh, his ludicrous lies last night, because that doesn't fit in with the version of Jason Arday they have invented. It's not their stance last night. Their campaigning for Jason Arday has got nothing to do with the man that was Jason Arday. It's got everything to do with the creation they have invented. This victim of media racism. Absolute nonsense. 03444991000. We'll talk to Simon Danjuk next. Stay tuned.
I don't think there are many communities in this country who want large numbers of men from very different cultures who've come here unlawfully, paying criminals. They don't want them amongst them, not because they're racists or they don't like people because of the colour of the skin or the religion, but it is just an unfair and very difficult burden to put on those communities.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to former Labour MP, now Reform UK's Simon Danjuk. Welcome, Simon.
Good to be with you, Kevin.
Always a pleasure. Now, I want to talk about this vigil for Jason Arday last night in Trafalgar Square. Depending on which media outlet you get your information from. I was watching Sky News last night. They said a crowd of about 1,000 had gathered. Picked up my Guardian this morning. Apparently it was tens of thousands, 30,000. So if you read the Guardian, it was an almost unprecedentedly massive crowd gathered to pay tribute, I say, not to the real Jason Arday, but to the Jason Arday those race grifters have invented. That's what they've done. Before I get your thoughts, Diane Abbott made a speech. That guy, Lord Woolley, the head of Homerton College, he called Jason Arday's death a lynching. an assassination by the public, that this was a witch hunt by a vicious racist media, etc., etc. So all lining up to make similar speeches about the evilness of the media. Here's a sort of montage of the highlights.
Jason was suffering. We knew that he felt hounded by those rabid wolves. The dogs of hell started on Jason Arday because they couldn't handle a black man.
The legacy media crossed every line in the treatment of Jason. They were gleefully enjoying racialized harassment, which was started by an unapologetic ethno-supremacist.
The vicious media campaign drove him to his death. The newspapers printed 249 articles about him. This was a vicious campaign, but it wasn't just a campaign against the professor, it was a campaign against all of us.
It's just nonsense, isn't it? I mean, this is serious race grifting. Now, they've tried to make a kind of victim of racism hero of Jason Arday, and what's happened to Jason, what happened to that poor man, is an utter tragedy. But it's not the media's fault. The fault is all these virtue signalers who chose to believe his obvious, stupid, ludicrous lies so they could signal their own virtue about having the youngest ever brilliant black professor at Cambridge. It's their fault. They gave the media this story. What is it that they want the media to do, Simon? Not report on this very valid story that allegedly one of the greatest universities in the world was completely conned by a lying fantasist? Is that they want us not to do that story? Their response to this tragedy of this young, fragile, mentally fragile fantasist, the death of this poor young guy, their response is to crack down on press freedom. I think their worldview is just warped.
I completely agree with you. These woke ideologists who were insistent upon appointing Jason Arday to Cambridge University, even though he wasn't qualified, they'd obviously done very little due diligence in relation to his qualifications. He was quite evidently a fantasist. I mean, it can strongly be argued that the guy was a fraudster to all intents and purposes in terms of some of what he did and the allegations against him. Like you, I agree, nobody wants to see a young man like this die. But those at Cambridge University really have to take responsibility for enabling and encouraging him to fantasise in the way that he did do. I mean, that's the reason he's killed himself, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's because he couldn't cope any longer with the fantasy that he's developed, and he was encouraged and enabled to develop them by those at Cambridge University.
I mean, I should point out, Simon, that, we don't actually know officially what happened with Jason Arday, but I think a lot of people are reaching the same conclusion as you. Clearly, something bad happened because this guy found himself in an extremely terrible position. He had everything, he lost everything in days. He went from being an esteemed genius professor, a celebrity professor, with a book coming out, television appearances. He went from all of that, the public respect, to losing everything, losing his respectable position, losing his esteemed status, losing his job at Cambridge, and clearly it was too much to cope. Really sad, but he should never have been given all of that. We know why he was given that. And those speeches that we just gave you a little montage of, I think that Lord Woolley guy, he's the head of Homerton College, he said it was a public assassination, a lynching. I think Cambridge ought to talk to him. The Press Association media who sent us the tape, they've edited out that bit, I suspect because they feel it's too incendiary. And it certainly is incendiary. This is nonsense. This is utter nonsense. They're picking on the press when it's not the press's fault. What did they expect? That we wouldn't report this story?
Well, absolutely. These far-left commentators at this vigil that we've just listened to are suggesting that that somebody like Arday shouldn't be scrutinised. He's received lots of public money. He's been doing significant book deals about his life, autobiography, much of which it now appears has been made up. And that's why I mentioned fraud allegations earlier. But they think he shouldn't be scrutinised. And the most concerning issue there is that some of them left-wing speakers that we've just listened to are in positions of responsibility within our higher education system.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have a clear out. If there's any positivity to come from this young man's sad, extremely sad death, it is that these people running some of our institutions have been found wanted. We can't have woke ideologues like this running institutions. Cambridge University's reputation is in tatters.
Yeah, it is.
I have children who are coming towards university. I would not want my children going to that university for love nor money. I think they have to take a real look in the mirror and reach different conclusions to what they are doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Cambridge has fallen. Cambridge's reputation is in the sewer after 2 terrible weeks. I mean, this saga has been hovering around for a couple of months now, but the last 2 weeks it reached a crescendo. As I say, not one of those speakers last night, a succession of them, mentioned anything except for the plagiarism row about his PhD. I think his PhD is pretty dubious, to say the least. He wrote his resignation letter on AI, the final irony. And until he turned up at Roehampton University, an austere establishment that dates back weeks, apparently, he had 3 GCSEs. You know, this guy was not qualified to be a professor. They keep calling him Dr. Arday, Professor Arday. He wasn't Dr. Arday, he wasn't Professor Arday. He just got those qualifications fraudulently. You know, this guy, it was a fraud. I mean, and there was a possibility, it may have contributed to his despair, that he could have been investigated by the police because he'd gained himself a £100,000 a year job as a Cambridge professor on the back of a fraudulent story. Everything about him was a lie. So he was facing possible police investigations. So the veneration of this guy, the veneration of the invention they've created around this guy, I think is really disturbing. I think it disrespects him, it patronises him, and it proves that in our society we have many people who aren't interested in the truth. They just want to accuse people like you and me, Simon, of being racists so that they can shout that, you know, Simon Denchik and Kevin O'Sullivan are racists. But we're not racists. We're not. They are. That's their whole line. They don't care about Jason Arday. They care about themselves. And I think that in itself is a tragedy.
Absolutely. And they don't care about the students that he allegedly taught. I mean, he was quite clearly not up to the job, was he? He wasn't qualified to do the job that he'd been appointed to do. What about all the students who relied upon him? And quite clearly must have got a poor service from somebody who wasn't capable of being in academia. Why don't they have sympathy for those people? I mean, there's so much more to come to light in all of this story. But I think the sooner Cambridge University, you know, accepts some culpability in terms of what's gone on, I think the sooner they'll get in a better place around it.
I think you're exactly right. They've got to clear the air. Don't forget, Cambridge University were the last people to accept that there were question marks about Jason Arday. And when they eventually said, all right, we'll investigate him as well as everybody else, he quit. He resigned about 20 minutes later. And I think that was the tipping point when he realised that his game was up at Cambridge. He realised his entire game was up and couldn't really handle that situation. Very, very sad, but it isn't the media's fault. The media just report the facts. Just reading, just as we part company, Simon, the BBC, they wrote a report about last night's vigil. The Guardian, tens of thousands, 30,000. This is the intro, the first paragraph to the BBC article. By the way, I was looking at that crowd on the TV just there. That's not 30,000. You'll be lucky if that's 1,000. Here's the BBC's first paragraph. You can always rely on the BBC. More than 200 people have attended an emotional vigil to remember the life of Jason Arday, and so on and so forth. It's just, you know, they say the first casualty of war is the truth. Well, it looks like the first casualty of the culture wars is the truth about Jason Arday. These people last night are avoiding the truth. They should confront it. Simon, really good to talk to you. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Simon Danjit, their former Labour MP. Your thoughts on what we saw last night? What are these people up to? Why are they so desperate to accuse vicious media monsters of being racists? What is this obsession they have with accusing us, the media, of being racist? We weren't racist towards Jason Arday. He happened to be a black guy that the race issue built up around because Cambridge made such a thing of it. He's our youngest ever black professor. You know, they made a big thing about it. In the end, his exposure, his decline and fall, his dramatic fall from grace was nothing to do with his colour. It's because he was exposed as an all-round fraud academically and about his life. He was just a fraud. He was a strange, vulnerable fantasist. And nobody cared about his vulnerability. They should have done. I said it every time we did a report on this channel. I said we shouldn't make this story about him. He is clearly troubled. He clearly needs help. Cambridge didn't seem to care, and nor did those people last night. They don't care. They just care about themselves. Something very bad going on here, and we need to stop those people last night in their tracks because they're going down a pernicious and vicious path that isn't justified. Next up, we're going to talk about traveller camps. Angela Rayner, the Housing Secretary, has paved the way for more traveller sites by relaxing the rules about where caravan dwellers can set up home, which could mean bad news for many middle-class communities around the country. No sooner are they getting used to the fact of having massive migrant camps on their doorsteps, now they're going to get traveller sites. So, is this an extension of Labour's obvious campaign, spiteful campaign against the middle classes? They're going to find out this is no way to govern a country. You don't govern a country through the prism of class warfare. If you do, you will fail. Got that, Burnham? Let's go to break and we'll talk about traveller sites next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Yeah, Angela Rayner has made changes to the planning rules, which mean that it could pave the way for more developments of the green belt, and has removed two key rules that residents have used to oppose unauthorised traveller camps. So to set up a traveller camp, an illegal traveller camp right next to long-suffering residents will now be a lot easier for these people who steam in under the cover of night. Now, we're going to talk now to a guy used to be head of communications at Basildon Council in Essex, and he's got a lot of experience of the difficulty of dealing with travellers when they just arrive in these sites, often at night time, and by the time the locals wake up in the morning, they've got a fully fledged camp. I mean, they tarmac it and everything. Angela Rayner appears to have paved the way for more of this all over the country. Is this part of Labour's attack on the middle classes? Seems like it. Let's talk to Cormac Smith, former head of communications at Basildon Council. Cormac, welcome to the show. You got experience of dealing with these sites, but it looks like the Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, has made it easier for these sites to set themselves up and more difficult for locals to oppose them. This won't go down well, will it?
Kevin, how are you? No, it won't go down well. You're bringing me back 15 years in my life. I've been far better known recently on Talk and other channels.
I know what you've been known for.
On Ukraine, where I went sometime after my what started to be about. I was drafted in for 3 months to oversee the communications around this because, you know, James cleverly said that the travellers were gaming the planning rules. My experience is that travellers are very, very good at gaming the system in general. And what I experienced back in 2011 was for 10 years, this at the time, Dale Farm was the largest illegal traveller encampment in Europe. And they had been blighting the lives of local people for nearly 10 years. Not only that, think about 10 years of councillors, council officers' time, and a huge amount of money devoted to trying to resolve this. The final cost of resolving it at one stage was put on £18 million. So that's just for starters. So even back then in 2011, we had a legal system, and or a planning system, but it's very important to say there was a lot of rubbish talked about human rights when I got involved. And I sat down very, very early and said, look, this is not about human rights, this is about the law. And these people are breaking the law by developing on greenbelt land without planning permission. Now, what Angela Rayner is doing now is making it even harder for local communities and local councils to prevent this. It looks like, from what we're reading, that they can simply go in, they can buy up some greenbelt land, they can develop it, nothing can be done to stop them. They can then apply for retrospective, yeah. And it looks like Angela Rayner is making it an awful lot harder for the council or local objectors to stop that retrospective planning permission being given. And I noticed from the figures that the number of illegal, now there's a difference between legal sites and illegal sites, and the criminality tends to, in my experience, attach itself to the illegal settlements, but the number of illegal caravans in the country has gone up by 71% since 2020. Since 2020. So this is a real concern for local people. And as I say, you've brought me back 15 years in my life.
It's my right. I'm a sort of kind of presenter TARDIS, you know.
But it was a very, very intense job that I did, and we were, you know, working on it.
Well, tell us about that, Cormac. I was going to ask you about that, Cormac. Tell us about, it's very traumatic for local communities when they wake up or they discover that within a matter of hours, you know, the field in the middle of the village or next to their house or whatever is now inhabited by 500 travellers. I mean, they set up very, very quickly. They put shingle down, they put tarmac down. They're there very, very quickly. Tell us about the effect that has on the local community. It must knock them sideways.
Well, you know, when I went down to Basildon at first, I wanted to understand as well as I could what I was dealing with, because this was, you mentioned you mentioned the figure of 500. This was a community of 500 travellers, and on what effectively I went down to visit Dale Farm with the permission of the travellers. It's got to be said, and what I found was effectively a medium-sized village. There was hard standings, there was built houses, there was everything else, and this was what ultimately the council, with the aid of the government at the time. The Tories had just come into power in 2010, if you remember, and that changed the calculus somewhat. And with the aid of the government, after fighting for 10 years, Basildon Council finally decided to clear this site forcibly, if necessary. And indeed, it was necessary to use force in the end. But my recollection was that there was, that, as I said before, the lives of a lot of local people had been disrupted and even blighted, and there was, at the time, there was a lot of low-level crime and fly tipping and so forth. Now, I want to make clear, I'm not suggesting that every traveller or every traveller community engages in such unlawful action. I'm not. And we don't have the statistics because the Home Office doesn't gather statistics on it. But what we do know is that the illegality and the criminal activity tends to attach itself to the illegal sites rather than the legal sites.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Cormac.
It's hugely concerning.
You don't get many neighbourhoods say, "Oh, it's brilliant. This traveller site has just been set up in our midst, and we're all for it." And it's working out really, really well. It never ever works out well, and I do wonder whether or not this is all part of this Labour government's ongoing spiteful campaign against the middle classes. If you don't get a massive migrant camp on your doorstep, you get a traveller site. Something ought to be done. Good to have you on again, Cormac. We'll get you on about Ukraine next time, I promise. All the best. Cormac Smith there, former head of communications at Basildon Council. The scourge of traveller sites, the government just made it easier. So if you've got one in your area, soon you might have two and more. What is it with this government? Don't they like, anybody who's got sort of own their own property, this government seems to want to make life difficult for them. This is not the way to govern. They're going to find this out. Just attacking people who don't vote for you. That isn't the way to govern. It really, really isn't. It's childish, to be honest with you. Now, next up, we're going to talk about a story that I found absolutely shocking. A stag, a deer, was shot dead in Richmond Park in London, big park to the west of London, because a guy in his 60s was having a picnic and the deer was hungry and it came and tried to take the food. There was a bit of a kerfuffle and the guy got injured. He was taken to hospital later on. His wounds were neither life-changing nor life-threatening. But the deer was shot dead, as it was deemed dangerous to other visitors. I'm not sure about this. Why did they shoot it dead? Was it because it didn't pay enough respect to the human being having a picnic? Didn't it know that it's not supposed to take the human being's food? Honestly, I mean, why did we execute this poor animal? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
£1 donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No. No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
R.I.P. The stag, the poor deer who dared to wander over to some guy's picnic in Richmond Park, where deer have been roaming since 1637. It's a 2,500 acres of parkland in West London, Richmond Park, very famous. There they are, if you're watching on TV. Anyway, this deer wandered up to a guy. There was a bit of kerfuffle over his picnic. The guy got slightly injured, taken to hospital, and the deer was pretty instantly shot dead. Quite a serious punishment for stealing a guy's sandwich, one might conclude. Let's talk to the External Affairs Director of the Countryside Alliance, Mo Metcalfe-Fisher. Hello, Mo.
Good to see you again, Kev.
Good to have you on the show again. Well, look, I'm a bit of an animal lover, and I noticed this story a few days back, and I thought, well, that's all wrong. Basically, as I just said, deer wandered over. There's some guy in his 60s having a picnic. Deer tries to take the food. There's some kind of kerfuffle. The guy gets slightly injured, very slightly injured. Is taken to hospital. The deer is executed, is shot dead. Now, they say that this deer was displaying dangerous behaviour, concerning patterns of behaviour. Maybe, maybe not. But I suspect it's this strange syndrome that we always have. If we find, you know, if a crocodile, if somebody falls into a crocodile pit and the crocodile attacks the person, we kill the crocodile. You know, well, that's what crocodiles do. We'll kill a shark if we can, if it kills a person. That's what sharks do. So it seems to me that the death, the execution, the shooting dead of this deer fits into a syndrome that I find disturbing. It's as if we're saying about this deer, didn't it know better than to attack this man's sandwich? Didn't this deer understand that you're not allowed to attack human beings' picnics? Of course it didn't understand. It's a deer. I just say that shooting it dead is a huge, tragic overreaction. What do you think?
Well, for me, it comes down to what led to this. It's not on the deer to not know. It's on the human beings to keep their distance. Now, Richmond Park has very, very clear guidelines. Keep well away from the deer. 50 metres is what they recommend. Yep. You could argue it could be further than that. Okay, deer, in that park, are a wild animal. They're not a pet. They're, you know, they may well be used to human beings to an extent, but that doesn't mean they can interact with human beings in the same way that a human being can interact with another human being. Yeah. These are extremely big beasts. They're very heavy. They can charge. They can run up to 30 miles an hour.
Massive antlers, obviously.
Massive antlers, very dangerous. Now, the keepers that care for these deer will carry out dispatches throughout the year for obvious reasons. If there's a deer that's very ill or gravely ill or risk to the other deer in the herd. And I can assure you that when they take a decision to dispatch a deer, it would be difficult for them. They probably know these deer by name, or have names for them. But they are a wild animal, and it comes down to the public to understand that it is not on them to feed them, to interact with them any other way other than to view them, and to do so in a respectful way. And too often, Kev, we see when we have a discussion about the countryside, as you know, that's my area, Richmond Park is an enclosed space, but when it comes to the countryside where we have huge deer numbers, and livestock too, there are too many instances of people trying to interact, feed them. We had an incident in the Highlands a couple of years ago where people were feeding deer croissants and kind of cakes and thought it was really amusing and probably great fodder for Instagram, not realising that they've put that deer in a horrific state where it must be dispatched. And, you know, I'm a realist when it comes to animals, Kev. You know, the decision would have been taken to dispatch that deer because it displayed a sign of aggression. And once it had almost had a taste for that, it could do it again.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm sure that that's possible, but you know, we always see this. As soon as an animal in any way damages a human being, the human race tends to overreact and exterminate that animal. And I would suspect that what's happened here is, you know, this guy has set up a picnic too close to the deer. And it seems to me that Richmond Park are going to have to work out their policies here, because it's not really cogent to say, right, you can have a picnic, but make sure your picnic isn't within 50 yards or 50 metres of any of the deer. Well, if you go to Richmond Park, that can often be very, very difficult. People will set up their picnic, maybe a deer will come within 50 metres, then it will smell the food, and then who knows what will happen. It just strikes me that, you know, this deer is an innocent victim of rules that I don't think are particularly coherent.
Well, it doesn't. This wild animal, it doesn't understand the rules. The rules are there for us. The onus is on human beings to interact with livestock and wild animals in a sensible way, to love them, to understand them, to learn about them, but not to take it upon themselves to play vet or farmer or
feeder.
Feeder,
I think, is the problem.
And that's a big problem, Kev. And it happens all the time. You know, we talked last week about rewilding. Remember, we were talking about releasing certain species. But these scenarios are scenarios that can arise. You know, that's deer. You know, there are advocates for introducing bears into the countryside. You know, these are the problems that could be coming down the line with this stuff. You know, it's what is the balance between loving nature and getting too close to it? Because it can have deadly consequences on both sides.
It's a difficult one, but there are 600 deers in Richmond Park, and you know, I would suspect that probably not a single one of them particularly understands the 50-metre rule or anything like that. And I think perhaps next time we decide to exterminate some poor stag, we should think about the fact it's an animal. It didn't read the rules. I just suspect this is an overreaction because I've seen it many times before. R.I.P. the deer. Our sympathy to the poor guy who had to go to hospital, but I fear this was an overreaction. Mo, brilliant to have you on the show, as always. Thank you. Mo Metcalf-Fisher there, External Affairs Director of the Countryside Alliance. After the break, I'll be joined by Ace Talk reporter Samantha Gill. We'll go through some of the big stories of the day, and we'll bring you the Green Party's reaction to the Jason Arday affair. They want a massive crackdown on press freedom, a massive crackdown on freedom of speech. That's good, isn't it? All of that next. See you after the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the second hour of this excellent edition of Drive Time. In a little while, old Jolly Green campaigner Dale Vince is very upset with Richard Tice, the Deputy Reform UK leader, because Richard has had the temerity that he dared to suggest that maybe some of us might be enjoying this summer. You know, sunshine, warmth, lovely days. Last time I looked, that meant it was a nice summer. I've been having a great time. I think so have a lot of you. So all these doom mongers don't quite get it. But Dale Vince is absolutely furious with Richard Tice for daring to suggest that we could enjoy this summer. And he will join us in a little while to thrill us with his doom-mongering about the environment. He says 1,000 people have died due to these heat waves in Britain alone, 100,000 across Europe. Really? Really? Well, I'll talk to Dale in just a little while. First up, though, in the studio, it's Talk's ace reporter, Samara Gill. Welcome, Samara.
Hey, Kev. Great to be here.
Good to have you on the show. Well, let me play you two quick clips. We're going to talk about last night's weird vigil for Jason Arday in Trafalgar Square. All these people gathering to make speeches about how it was the racist media that caused his death. No, it wasn't. It was the exposure of the truth of about his lies. It was him. He told so many ridiculous, laughable lies that when he was exposed, clearly he couldn't quite take it. He lost everything because he'd gained everything on false pretenses. Nobody is celebrating that poor man's death. He was a vulnerable guy with sheer, pure, vulnerable mental health issues, clearly. Nobody paid enough of attention to that. Nobody is celebrating that, but this guy was not the victim of a racist media witch hunt, that's for damn sure. Samara, I'm going to play you two of the speeches, well, two versions of one speech last night. It's a guy called Lord Woolley. He's the head of Homerton College in Cambridge. And first of all, I'll give you the unexpedited version of his speech. Here it is. This is the unedited version. This is Lord Woolley in Trafalgar Square speaking to, if you read The Guardian, tens of thousands of protesters. In fact, there are about like a few hundred, but we won't let a few thousand get in the way of the facts, will we? Here he is, though, Lord Woolley on the sad death of Jason Arday.
This is tough for me, as it's tough for all of you and the hundreds and thousands of people in the UK and around the world who are appalled by the public assassination of Jason Arday. The lynching. The lynching.
The lynching. The lynching. Yeah, that's what everybody did, didn't they? They got hold of Jason Arday and they lynched him on a tree. They hanged him. Oh no, they didn't, did they? What on earth is he talking about? Now, Samara, then we got a version of his speech, Lord Woolley's speech, from the Press Association, PA Media. Somebody down the line has edited it. Here's the edited version of Lord Woolley's speech in Trafalgar Square.
This is tough for me, as it's tough for all of you and the hundreds and thousands of people in the UK and around the world who are appalled. I want to change the world.
So the public assassination and the lynching got lost in the edit. Somebody at PA, I suspect, we've reached out to PA for a comment, but I suspect they decided that calling Jason Arday's death, a public assassination and a lynching, was too inflammatory, too ridiculously sensationalist, so they decided to edit it out. But what is he talking about? A lynching?
I mean, it's the Jason Arday tragedy has been so politicised from top to bottom, obviously. But I mean, of course, Lord Woolley would want to admonish any sort of guilt from his own record, considering that he was the head of a college at Cambridge. He worked within that institution that uplifted, obviously, Jason Arday and totally entertained all his fanatical thoughts about his life that obviously ended up not being true. I think that it's very dangerous, some of the words that people like Lord Woolley and others were using yesterday at the vigil. I think that we really shouldn't be pointing fingers this early on in the tragedy. I think honestly, everything should be focused on Jason Arday, the 2 young children that he leaves behind, his family, and that's it. Case closed. But it's on the very far left and the very far right, both are taking this fight on X and going way too far with it. And I think that the left are weaponising his death as some sort of George Floyd 2.0 moment, and I don't think that that's appropriate at all. A man has just died. Let's leave it at that.
Well, yeah, they are celebrating their version of Jason Arday. I think the patronising nature of what we saw last night in Trafalgar Square is that they're not thinking about Jason Arday, the human being, Jason Arday, the man, Jason Arday, the husband, the father of 2, the reality of what he was. They're not thinking about that. They're only revolving around their own creation, their own invention. They've invented their version of Jason Arday, a brilliant young professor, an academic powerhouse, vaulted to the top of Cambridge University due to his sheer brilliance, but destroyed by a racist media campaign, by racist journalists who couldn't handle a black guy doing so well in academia. Someone like Lord Woolley, who is a black guy who's ahead of Homerton College in Cambridge. So they're acting as if we can't stand the prospect, the sight of black people in positions of power and esteemed authority in academia. We're used to it. You know, and so we should be. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to see there. But with Jason Arday, he was a creation. He wasn't qualified to do this job, but Jesus College and Cambridge desperately wanted to say, we've got the youngest ever black professor. He was appointed when he was 37 years old. And when the truth came out about him, it all unravelled very fast for him. I feel sorry for the guy. He lost everything in days flat, and he was put in a terrible position, but he should never have been promoted to a professorship in the first place. He had 3 GCSEs.
Well, yes, he was created in Cambridge's image in some sort of way. I think that I think we can't not say that there wasn't a racial element to this story.
But not on the part of the media.
No, well, I think it was because he kind of became a poster child for DEI.
They kept saying it, didn't they?
Yes, but I think that, of course, I mean, how could this story not have a racial element to it? Of course it did. But, you know, illegitimate... After his tragic death, we really shouldn't retrospectively turn legitimate questions into illegitimate journalism, in my opinion. And I think that's what Cambridge University and the others who are supporting him are trying to do. And, you know, we forget that Arday got Carter Ruck, who's a very, very prominent lawyer, onto another journalist who did initially try and investigate him and tried to silence this. And then, of course, the journalist got investigated by the police. So I think this whole situation has been an absolute mess from top to bottom. And it ended in the most tragic way possible. And now it continues post-death.
Yeah, but in this dysfunctional saga, so you've got, obviously, Cambridge University was taken in by him, the publishing industry was taken in by him because he's publishing his books, charities were taken in by him because of his fantastical alleged achievements, the BBC, which invited him to be a guest editor of the Today programme, and he was a regular on Laura Kuenssberg's Sunday programme, the BBC BBC was taken in by him, and the list goes on.
But he didn't do anything illegal.
So in all of that, well, you know, that's debatable. Getting yourself a £100,000 job on the back of lies, that's called fraud. But that notwithstanding, the one entity in that list of shame, all these people who gathered around his lies and decided they wanted to believe him, the one entity in that list that emerges from this sordid saga, this sorry saga with its head held high, is the media. All we did was report the story.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Cambridge was investigating themselves at the time of his death. They flip-flopped so much on this, where they went from defending him to they've also said that he didn't have any plagiarism or anything like that. And I do think we do need to go back to the fact that this was all about plagiarism and kind of trivial things if you think about it. But you are right, you know, he was totally held up by the rest of British society and over-promoted and all these things. But it's absolutely not worth doing the most stupid thing ever, which is what he did, which is take his own life, allegedly. I guess, but they have put that out. Look, I think that...
I'm not sure it's stupid. It was tragic. It's very tragic. You know, it's clear...
It's everyone who...
It's clear what happened to him. He lost everything in a matter of days. He went from esteemed professor, book coming out, regular on television, celebrity academic. He went from that to nothing, losing absolutely everything and becoming an international laughingstock. That's hard to handle. That's what happened. That's what happened.
I think, you know, Cambridge needs to look inwards as well.
Therefore, it's Cambridge's fault. Let's get that straight. Let's really get that straight. Let me know what you think, folks. 03444 99 1000. Blaming the press like all those people in Trafalgar Square. Classic case of shooting the messenger. All the press did was report the facts. The facts, OK, they were fantastical, they were laughable, they were funny, but they weren't wrong. So the press did nothing wrong. It's ridiculous what those people were trying to do in Trafalgar Square last night. And you've got the Green Party are now proposing this huge press crackdown on freedom of speech. What are they suggesting?
This is the scary part, because honestly, yes, it is a tragedy what happened to Arday, but the Greens have already weaponised it by saying that they're going to release a plan for a sweeping crackdown on free speech.
Great.
The proposal...
That's encouraging.
So this was sort of after the death of Jason Arday. They've penned this. 2 state regulatory services to map out and address racism and ableism in media output and monitor harassment allegedly arising from coverage. They also want to involve Ofcom in this. They want Ofcom to be empowered to make large platforms remove hateful, discriminatory and conspiratorial material, seemingly wherever it falls within the bounds of lawful free speech. So this is a really harsh crackdown. They're pretty much leaving it all to whatever they believe is hateful speech, which, as we know from pretty much the last 2-3 years, or at least 2 years under the Labour government, is a big problem. And they're also demanding that around £1 billion of public money will be poured each year into an independent media commons of a non-profit public interest outlets, but basically saying that they're going to monitor whatever. I think they'll be having a focus on the right-wing media outlets and trying to silence them. But of course they want this news to come out today, because alongside that I saw an exclusive that a Green Party group chat that's been leaked discussed killing Zionists. So, of course, they want to crack down on the free speech media. This was about a Green Party activist claiming that British Jews are a weapon of Israel and described hostility towards Jews as understandable in leaked WhatsApp messages.
Of course they think it's understandable.
Exactly. So this is...
Too many of them are anti-Semites, that's why.
A group called Greens Against Imperialism, which is hosted by a Green Party parish councillor from Wootton Bridge in the Isle of Wight. So basically, when you look at what's come out of this, they talk about killing Zionists, they talk about Israeli Jews being genociders. It's all horrible, but it's just interesting that it never goes in their direction when they want to talk about, you know, the free press. I think that the free press has gone and interrogated Zach Polanski and found many a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still with freedom of speech. Children's Commissioner Dame Rachel D'Souza, has said that kids are becoming intoxicated by extremism, and they're becoming increasingly radicalised online. You know, I don't doubt that there's a problem there, but this constant repeating, the hammering of this narrative about the dangers of social media to children, this is a mechanism by which they close down social media. So they're trying to say, oh, it's only safe. We've got to close down social media because it's not safe for children. Well, that is a source of worry, but freedom of speech, it should be preeminent, and I'm distrustful of this constant citing of the danger to children. There is a danger to children, but that should not be at the expense of freedom of speech.
Well, any time they want to package something up to sell to the public, they do involve children. The Online Safety Act is really about limiting people's freedoms.
Freedom of speech, yes.
Exactly.
It's an attack on freedom of speech.
Massively, if you look into it. But of course, they focus on the two different points about, you know, limiting children's access to pornography, etc. It is a real problem, and I think also this is parents shifting the blame from their lack of parenting and their switched off sort of attitude to them blaming the iPad or the iPhone that they've shoved in front of their kids. That's just my personal view.
Yeah,
I think that when you look at cases like Axel Rudakabana, where that kid was living under a house where his parents knew that he was a massive risk. I mean, this guy was cooking up ricin in his bedroom, for God's sake, yet still Prevent, after 3 times, couldn't find a way to reprimand him. It does show that I think a lot more onus should be on the parents here. You should be able to notice if your child is shifting into extremist tendencies or is taking a lot of extremist content online, and you should be able to step in as a parent. Why does the state need to do your job for you? We need to ask these questions.
That's what I think. I mean, you know, the state, the country, the government actually banning social media for under 16s, you know, that shouldn't be a job for the government. That should be a job for parents. You know, get out of our lives. Stop banning things. Leave us alone. You know, we don't want your stupid warnings about barbecues. You know, that's backfired really badly, that Friday buzzing warning that they gave. Millions of people are now thought to have disarmed their emergency warning function on their phones because they don't want this interfering mother government, this socialist nanny state, sticking its nose into our lives. We don't want this. If you do it, we'll do everything we can to stop you. So Andy Burnham and the gang, being socialists, they think that's what we want. Mother government protecting us, helping us. No, no, no. We just want you to butt out of our lives. The smaller the government, the better. Before we go, a quick word of sympathy, if you will, Samara, for new farming minister Stephen Morgan. He's been on a tour of farms all over the country. We went to the Lake District the other day, where he went from farm to refrigerating units. He went into a cold room. He'd just been seeing some cows outside, went into a cold storage room and was confronted by these huge slabs of beef and meat everywhere and promptly sort of fainted. He said he felt ill and had to be taken out. Now, people are joking, saying that the farming minister got faint at the sight of meat, which isn't a good thing. He's saying, look, you know, it was very hot. I've been in and out of cold storage units. I was going in from sort of like 35 degrees to a refrigerator and then back out. And in the end, I didn't feel very well. So should we give him the benefit of the doubt?
I don't know. It seems like the
or shall we not?
Yeah, no. He's a long way from Islington, isn't he? I joke. But the thing, I have to say, it actually shows this government's disconnect with the people that it represents. You know, the farmers who have been slammed with a litany of policies against them. One of the most harrowing interviews I think you've ever done that I watched was the fact that you interviewed that son of a farmer.
Oh yeah,
his dad took his own life
because of the inheritance
sorry, guys,
tax.
a very dark sort of show.
Because of the inheritance tax.
Because of the inheritance tax that Rachel Reeves had slammed on him, and of course the coroner's report showed that in his letter he blamed Rachel Reeves' taxes for that. So it just shows you how disconnected this government is, and there will be a protest, I think, next month. The farmers are going to descend on Westminster again and try and tell the Labour government, stop doing this. Honestly, stop doing this to us. They are destroying the backbone of this nation.
They don't like farmers. They don't like the rural community. They don't like old people, because none of these people vote Labour. And if you don't vote Labour, this government's proving they're very, very spiteful towards you. Portsmouth South MP Stephen Morgan explained of his wobble, I felt unwell moving between the extreme heat and cold storage, and I'm grateful to all the staff at Lake District Farmers. Hats off to the brilliant people working in these conditions and temperatures to keep the nation fed. Well done, Stephen. And thank you very much to Samara Gill. Next up, I'm going to talk to Green campaigner, Labour supporter Dale Vince. He's very upset with Richard Tice, who said, why don't we just enjoy this summer? Dale says it's lethal. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
£5 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election, is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He is Labour donor and the founder of Ecotricity, Dale Vince. Welcome, Dale.
Yeah, thank you.
Why are you so upset with Richard Tice, the Reform UK deputy leader, because he had the temerity to suggest that maybe people might be enjoying this hot summer? Before I get your answer, Dale, let's have a listen to Mr. Tice speaking on this issue yesterday.
Of course, climate change is real, and but the idea, where is the evidence that net zero is going to stop it? Where is the evidence? There isn't any. Climate change has always happened, it always will. Maybe the smarter thing to do is to adapt to it than think arrogantly that you can stop it. And I think, I'm old enough to remember 1976. This feels a bit the same. That was 50 years ago. I think when it's a bit warm, let's enjoy it. And if it means that English wine and sparkling wine gets better and better, fantastic. That means we can take on the French, fantastic. Let's celebrate some of these things rather than just be sort of doom and gloom about it.
Why do you find that so annoying? I think a lot of people, Dale, have enjoyed this wonderful, sunny, hot summer. Why do you find it so annoying what Tice was saying there?
Well, I didn't find it so annoying. I found it actually, I thought it to be stupid. I thought it to be ignorant towards the 1,000 people who have died in this heat wave in our country.
Well, that's not strictly true, is it?
Yeah, it is. These are
no. 1,000 deaths have been across Europe been linked to the heat wave. They have not been actually blamed on the heat wave.
Okay,
They've been linked.
You've got the wrong facts.
Okay. Prove to me that 1,000 people have died.
Let me finish. Let me say something. 2,700 deaths in our country in 2 months, of which 40% are estimated officially.
Oh yeah, but not actually definitively. You're just going on the mood music that you want.
I'm telling you, official estimates of 1,000 deaths from the heat wave.
Estimates.
So that's my first point. My second is over 1,000 wildfires and 20 people that have lost their homes.
Yeah, well, these are tragedies, but wildfires...
Tell them to go and drink a glass of wine.
Wildfires have happened before, and they'll happen again, won't they?
Yeah, so this is the other point of what he said. It's stupid to say that we've had, these kinds of events globally before, because we haven't. The fossil record is clear that carbon levels in our atmosphere have never been higher in millions of years, and they began to climb 200 years ago when we started the mass burning of fossil fuels. So when he says there's nothing we can do about it, it's arrogant to think that we can. It's stupid to think that we can't, because we simply have to stop burning fossil fuels. That's the cause, and that's the answer.
But you would concede, Dale, that the standpoint from which Richard Tice is coming is this. You say in your tweet, the science is clear. Our carbon emissions have driven atmospheric carbon levels to levels last seen millions of years ago. Mass burning of fossil fuels in just 200 years is the cause. That is not scientifically proved, is it?
That's what I just said, in fact.
No, but it's not. That is not proven.
It's fact. We can see it.
No, it's not fact, Dale. It's consensus. It's not fact. It's not fact. It has never been scientifically proved that mankind is causing or even exacerbating climate change. You can laugh, but that is a fact. It is not It is not a scientific fact. It is a consensus you choose to buy into. It's a consensus that Mr. Tice chooses not to buy into. His certitude is just as valid as your certitude, isn't it?
Here's a question for you.
Yes, it is.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What is a scientific fact if not a consensus?
A consensus is not a fact. It's got to be proved.
A scientific fact.
No. Consensus does not. Consensus.
A scientific
No,
fact
Dale, you know consensus is not fact.
We're not talking about politics.
Consensus is majority. No, consensus is majority opinion. It's not fact. There's a lot of scientists out there, and you know this, who say that mankind has got nothing to do with climate change. You choose to believe it. No, that's not true. It's not a tiny minority.
I thought we were coming on here for a discussion, not shouting, man.
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to get across to you. You choose to buy into that version of the truth. Richard Tice chooses not to. You have certitude in your view. He has certitude in his view. Neither of you are definitively right or definitively wrong. Do you accept that?
No.
Well, why don't you?
Because it's stupid. You're talking nonsense.
Well, OK, because you don't want to accept that it's not a fact, that it's not a scientifically proven fact that mankind is causing climate change.
I think you don't want to accept that it is a fact.
I sit on the fence. I want scientific proof before I go along with this.
And how do we prove?
But Dale, fact. Consensus is not fact. It's majority opinion.
Look, the fossil record is clear about carbon particles, carbon in the atmosphere. The fossil record is clear. That's science. That's not opinion.
Well, that doesn't mean that we are changing the climate. That has not.
Well, the other fact in the fossil record is that carbon levels in the atmosphere leapt 200 years ago, which is the same time as the Industrial Revolution and the mass burning of fossil fuels. So I think it's a fairly reasonable fact.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make it a fact.
Those two are connected.
That makes it an opinion. It doesn't make it a fact.
No, that's not an opinion.
It is, Dale. You cannot have certitude in something that is not scientifically proved.
The fossil record shows.
You're just.
In that case, tell me what happened 200 years ago that's driving the climate crisis.
Well, you have worked out what you think causes climate change. Other people say Dale Vince is wrong. You understand that? You could be wrong, couldn't you?
No. This is the opinion.
No, Dale, you've got to accept you could be wrong.
No, this is the opinion of the majority of scientists.
It doesn't make it a fact.
Of course, it does.
No, it doesn't. How many more times?
Position.
Yeah.
It is. Based on all of the evidence that we have available to us.
Don't you understand?
You're being ridiculous.
No, I'm not. Consensus does not deliver facts.
Is this the limit to our discussion?
Yeah, you want to condemn Richard Tice. I say he's got a point. Don't you think people... Dale, people have enjoyed this summer? I've had a hell of a time. People have loved this summer. You doom mongers, you're just killjoys, aren't you?
That's just silly, isn't it? I'm not a doom monger. I'm a fact monger.
Yeah? Well, why can't people just enjoy the summer?
And 1,000 people are dead, and 20 people have lost their homes.
No, well, that's bad.
And
I agree with that.
Now I'm going to stretch me on breaking point.
But your facts. You can't say 1,000 people have died because of climate change. That's right.
Well,
you laugh in a condescending way. It's you that are making this. You're making yourself look ridiculous. Don't blame me.
This is not a discussion. This is just a rant. Come on.
Okay, I say that you're wrong.
Yes, repeatedly.
Yeah. So?
That's not a discussion. You're just repeating yourself
you say you're right.
Talking over me.
Well, you're not proving your point. You're just saying consensus, majority. That doesn't prove the point.
No, I'm talking about scientific facts.
No. We've been around this.
Let's talk about something else where I'm going to go, because I've got better things to do.
Consensus opinion. Listen, let me ask you something that I do approve of you about. You are being, I think, very sensibly pragmatic about North Sea oil. You seem to be saying now that we should examine re-drilling out there in the North Sea. Tell us about that.
What I'm saying is we should do something quite radical and take control of the pricing of our own North Sea oil and gas. We should separate from global markets for oil and gas, set the price ourselves according to the cost of production, plus a reasonable profit margin, and fix the price. It's the same mechanism we've used for green energy. It's been terribly successful. We've built hundreds of megawatts of wind energy off the back of that, hundreds of billions of investment. We can do the same thing in our North Sea, and we can save about £10 billion a year, and we can start to put some money aside for the $50 billion cleanup bill that's just around the corner that no government has ever made provision for.
Can I just say, I think that's a brilliant idea, what you just said about North Sea oil. Why won't the government listen to you?
I don't know, but I only put it to them last week, so I think...
so you're working on it? You're working on
it.
And Andy Burnham did say that he feels pragmatic about this. So your brilliant idea about separating North Sea oil from international financial pressures, persuade him, Dale. Do us all a favour. What do you reckon?
I'm on the job.
Dale, it really is good to have you on the show. Right. Come on again soon. All the best, mate. Dale Vince there, the founder of Ecotricity and Labour donor there. He did make, I think that's a great point about North Sea oil. So we weren't completely at odds there. Let me know what you think. Are you enjoying this summer? I've asked you this question before. Seems to be fading out a bit as I look outside at a very grey sky, and we are forecast lots of rain to come, which is probably for the best. But have you enjoyed this amazing summer? Because I have. I think it's been incredible. All these doom mongers, aren't you sick of it? Oh, everyone's dying. They can't prove this. 1,000 people died because of the heat waves. No. You look into that again, and it says 1,000 deaths have been linked to the heat waves. That's a very different thing. They're talking about 100,000 people in Europe dying because of the heat wave. This is nonsense. These are sensationalist figures plucked from the ether to promote climate change panic. But have you enjoyed this summer? Let me know. 03444991000. Next up, we're going to talk about the strange case of the Scottish curry restaurant that Reform UK's Zia Youssef says is responsible, has been over the last year responsible for 42 skilled worker visas. Mind you, the owner of the restaurant says 2. We've been responsible for 2 skilled worker visas. Curry houses very legitimately, very often have skilled worker visas because they get brilliant curry chefs in from India and Pakistan where they know how to make curries. Do you see what I mean? But the owner of this shop said 42. You must be kidding me, too. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now let's talk about a restaurant up in St Andrews where all the golf courses are. It's in Fife in Scotland. And we are talking about a restaurant called I'll get there in a minute. It's called the Jahangir Balti and Tandoori restaurant. It's right in the middle of the lovely town of St Andrews. Zia Youssef, Reform UK's shadow Home Office spokesman, if you like, has gone on Twitter and said that this tiny Scottish curry joint has been granted 42 skilled worker visas in just 2 years. Skilled workers are allowed to bring their dependents to Britain, which are usually come to around about 4 or 5 people. So, according to Zia Youssef, the Jahangir Balti and Tandoori restaurant is likely responsible for around 200 new immigrants over a busy couple of years. The owner of the restaurant says Mr. Youssef must be mistaken. As far as he can work out, he's only ever been granted 2 skilled worker visas. Let's talk to, from the Centre for Migration Control, their research director, Robert Bates. Hi, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. Hope you're well.
I'm OK. This is a bit of a curious case, though, because the Jahangir Balti and Tandoori restaurant in St Andrews stands accused by Zia Youssef of getting 42 skilled worker visas over the last 2 years. If that was the case, that is extremely dodgy. The owner of the restaurant says, no, I don't know where he's getting this from. We've actually only received 2 skilled worker visas. So I'm not sure quite what's going on here and whether or not the Jahangir Balti and Tandoori restaurant deserves to be in the spotlight on this issue, but it wouldn't be the first restaurant or the first business to receive a disproportionate number of skilled worker visas, would it?
Yeah, so I think what's happened here is this restaurant is part of a chain of 3 or 4 under a sort of company called Waltham Limited. And I've looked at the Freedom of Information data myself, and there is no doubt that this is an organisation that did award 42 certificates of sponsorship, which certificates of sponsorship are basically the meat of a visa. You can't get a skilled worker visa without a business sponsoring you. It did award 42 of those certificates during the time period that Zia Youssef mentions, and actually 33 of those were used as part of visa applications. So there is no doubt that actually a large number have been awarded here. And actually, I think the debate itself comes to a really important point that I think is often overlooked is the Tories during their last time in government were proposing the idea that actually those businesses that are bringing migrants to the UK are put on a publicly available register, so individuals can actually see, if you like, which businesses are responsible for the sense of migration being higher in their area. I think that's an incredibly appropriate thing to do. I think it would bring a lot of transparency to an issue where people feel They can't see where these migrants are going, and I think it's important actually for some semblance of accountability as well. At the moment, it's very, very difficult to get any information. You have to drag it out of the Home Office via freedom of information requests and all kinds of other complicated procedures. But I think in general, what we do need to be moving towards with the points-based system, if the registrar sponsors those businesses that are allowed to bring migrants over is going to continue operating, then there needs to be some form of accountability, because it's very much they enjoy the localized benefits of bringing migrants to the UK, the ability to not have to invest in the British workforce and maybe pay lower wages, but the costs are generalised across the local community, whether that be in pressure on infrastructure, welfare, or even the cultural change as well. So I think actually going forward, a proper sensible approach would be to have a publicly available data set of this kind of stuff out there.
Yes, indeed. And the owner of the restaurant, he says, what does he say? I don't know what the hell Zia Yusuf's talking about. The only people we have on our books work permit-wise is 4 people. We don't know about the 42 he's talking about. How can that be possible in a small restaurant like ours? Now, we don't actually know the full details about this restaurant, but that's the problem, isn't it? There are small, tiny businesses around the country with 3 or 4 people working there, and if you look into it, they have received sometimes 10, 20, 30, 40 skilled worker visas in what is obviously a scam. We're not accusing the restaurant, the Jahenga Balti and Tandoori restaurant in St Andrews, of that, but it is a thing, isn't it? Small businesses being awarded a disproportionate number of skilled worker visas. It's at the heart of our migration problem.
It's the huge problem. It is really actually, again, falls on the shoulders of Boris Johnson's time in government, where the list in 2019, between 2019 and now, has increased sixfold. We've got 130,000 organisations around the country that are allowed to bring in migrants, and the ability of the Home Office actually to conduct proper checks or compliance visits on these businesses is so remote. It simply can't deal with the size, and the result is that you do end up with, I mean, we have seen a lot of fraud in the care visa route in particular, with a lot of businesses ultimately being found to bring individuals in who didn't actually have a role in the country. It's basically just an opportunity for them to get their foot in the country and then claim asylum. And this is actually really a chaotic situation that can only really be tidied up with a proper clampdown, a comprehensive audit of every single business that is actually currently bringing migrants into the UK. Because, of course, we have seen some instances of businesses on here, whether that be Islamic bookshops selling really, really hateful literature, or indeed the Islamic Centre of England, which has been accused of having links to the Iranian regime. There's all manner of organisations on here that any right-thinking person would think it's entirely inappropriate for them to be able to and to have the right to bring migrants to Britain. So what we actually need to do is we need to move away from the points-based immigration system, which really devolved our border control to hundreds of thousands of businesses, and to take it back into the Home Office having a lot more central command, because otherwise the numbers and the incentive structure that these businesses have will continue to mean that numbers do rise.
And looking at this story, it does give rise to concern about the legal migrant crisis, if I can put it that way. We're obviously, when we start seeing mega dinghies with 230 passengers on board, illegal migrants coming across the channel in this new big boat system, big Burnham boat system, we tend to focus on the illegal migrant crisis. But this story about this curry house, true or false, reveals that we should think a lot more about the legal migrant crisis that continues apace.
The legal migrant crisis is far, far bigger in terms of the fiscal and cultural costs than the small boats crisis. I mean, when you think about actually us, we've been repeatedly told for decades now that mass migration is going to take this country to sunlit uplands. Well, I think few would actually argue that we are there. We're seeing living standards continue to deteriorate. Investment in infrastructure just simply isn't keeping pace. And really, actually, the Boris wave in particular, that spike in legal migration that we saw after 2019, has left many, many communities feeling completely transformed. And when you consider what the trade-off would be, the so-called trade-off of the economic benefits, well, it's non-existent. About 20% of those that have actually come to the UK since we left the European Union were on work visas, were main applicants on work visas. A whole host more of them were on family visas, which is incredibly troublesome route and does actually lead to chain migration and long-term fiscal costs. But also you have students coming to very, very low quality sort of polytechnic roundabout universities that aren't actually offering any real value or any skills. You know, a proper polytechnic would offer skills, but they're basically doing socialism or wardrobe design at these low-grade universities and then getting a foothold in the country and a pathway towards transferring visa and then ultimately settlement as well. And I think we need to really focus the mind on the Boris wave impending access to indefinite leave to remain and all the rights that will bestow upon estimates suggest up to 2.2 million people, access to welfare state, right to bring over family members, the right to engage in most of the privileges that you would think should be reserved for British citizens as well.
And what's worth stressing again that if this story about the Jahinga Balti and Tandoori restaurant in St Andrews is true, and that they have been granted 42 skilled worker visas, the likelihood is that will have resulted in about 200 new immigrants to Britain, because on average skilled worker visas, people given skilled worker visas bring 4 to 5 people with them. So it's not just the person who gets the visa who moves to Britain, so do their families. So we got a problem here, and whatever the truth is about the Jahinga Balti and Tandoori restaurant in St Andrews, there is a wider truth that we need to get real about. Great to talk to you, Robert, as always. Thank you so much. Robert Bates there from the Centre for Migration Control, where he is Research Director. Next up, a new development in the sordid saga of that guy, Shabir Ahmed, the child rapist, the serial child rapist, who we released last month after 14 years of his prison sentence. And we want to deport him to Pakistan, and Pakistan says it won't take him back, even though he was born there. They say he is an internal British problem, and if we don't back off, they will refuse to take any more rejected migrants from Britain. Well, fine. I think we could probably hit them harder than they can hit us. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
£5 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election, is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for his security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Trouble continues surrounding the release of the multiple child rapist. He was sentenced to 22 years for raping 30 children, 30 child rape offences. His name's Shabir Ahmed. He's 73 years old, and you will recall last month he was released early after 14 years of his 22-year sentence. Now we want to deport him back to his native Pakistan, but Pakistan won't take him. They say that this rape gang leader is, quotes, very much the UK's internal problem. Let's talk to Khadija Khan, journalist. Hi, Khadija.
Hello, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show, as always. What do you make of this? Pakistan is getting its knickers in a twist about Britain's insistence that they must take back this monster, Shabir Ahmed, who is, after all, Pakistani. He was born in Pakistan. The nuance of his situation is this, that he was granted British citizenship before 1971, which means that he can never be deported under those agreements. So he becomes a British citizen and cannot be deported under this weird arrangement settled in 1971. Now, we say no. We say he's a rapist, you've got to take him back. Now, Pakistan is now saying, if you carry on with this, we will stop taking back British reject migrants altogether. They say they have taken 1,500 Pakistani citizens back over the years who've been rejected by Britain. And there are 306 Pakistanis held in UK jails at the moment that they could potentially take back, but they say they won't take back anyone if we force them to have Shabir Ahmed. Well, I say that Britain should turn around to them and say, you're going to take this guy, because if you think you can impose sanctions on us, you wait till we get stuck into you. We need to force Pakistan to take this monster back. He's theirs, he's not ours.
I mean, the fact that we are still debating whether he can be deported to Pakistan is just disgraceful. Now that he's a free man, authorities are struggling to determine what to do with him. Escalation, compromise, or domestic containment. I agree it's a hard choice to make for the Home Office. But let's not forget that these are the same politicians who were initially reluctant to even discuss this scandal. The successive governments have been dragged kicking and screaming to this moment where they finally concede their abysmal failures and prioritize a legislative solution. Now, finally, there is a public and political consensus in the UK right now that the individuals convicted of serious crimes, such as raping children in this case, should not remain in the country after serving their prison sentences. Sending him back not only serves justice, but also protects the public interest. But it is utterly outrageous that Pakistan has, in a way, threatened Britain by saying...
Not in a way, they are threatening us, saying that if we continue with this case, the Pakistanis say we will no longer cooperate at all. You won't be able to deport any Pakistani nationals back to their home country. Where is
utterly outrageous that they have threatened Britain by saying that they will not take this person back, this criminal back, and this Rochdale rapist is very much UK's internal problem. Pakistan has even audaciously, as you just mentioned, claimed that it could halt the acceptance of illegal migrants if Britain attempts to deport the grooming gang ringleader, a criminal who is currently a Pakistani national. Kevin, this despicable man should have been deported immediately upon his conviction. This disturbing situation is not just a grave miscarriage of justice. It fundamentally undermines our legal system's obligation to protect victims. Now, these threats from Pakistan, I'm sorry, but these threats from Pakistan, they literally have made British legal system a laughingstock on the international stage. When he was stripped of his nationality by the courts after his imprisonment. He remained a Pakistani national. Under the international law, he cannot simply render himself stateless. Pakistani officials are refusing to accept any legal responsibility for taking him back. They would have us believed that they are doing Britain a favor by taking back foreign criminals, failed asylum seekers, and immigration offenders. In reality, it is all justified to deport these individuals back to Pakistan under the readmission agreement. This reciprocal pact allows for the expedited deportations of foreign criminals, failed asylum seekers, and immigration offenders who have no legal right to be in
Do you think this, Khadija? I think that what Britain should do in this situation is flex its muscles and say, you want to make threats to us, here's a threat to you. You don't take this guy back. If you don't take him back, we cut off all visas to Pakistan. You can't send anyone to this country. No more Pakistanis can come to live in Britain. Take it or leave it. You take Shabir Ahmad and we carry on our friendly cooperation. You don't take him and no more Pakistanis come to this country. If we did that, Pakistan would sit up and listen. I don't think we should be pushed around in these circumstances.
I couldn't agree more with all of this, but the problem is, on the surface, the Labour government seems determined to deport this Pakistani national ringleader of the racial grooming gang. Conservatives are very much willing to oblige and cooperate in changing the existing laws. However, there seems to be a significant lack of willingness to act. If Pakistan, as you said, that if Pakistan refuses to take back Ahmed and other criminals, this continues to be a clear violation of the existing agreement between the UK and Pakistan. In such case, visa restrictions should be implemented, including banning all applicants from Pakistan and suspending overseas aid if it is necessary to compel Pakistan to fulfill its legal obligations. But unfortunately, we don't see, such willingness on the part of our politicians to do this. Now, the successive governments, they have the choice to deport this man. This matter should have been resolved over the 14 years, but they are still scratching their heads to what to do with this person who is now a free man in the UK.
Yeah, don't you think, by the way, overarchingly, Khadija, my question is, why did we let him out? He's doing a 22-year sentence, found guilty of 30 child rape offences. It is believed he raped many, many more children than that. Why on earth did we let him out? He was doing 22 years. We let him out after 14. The solution to this entire predicament, this entire problem, could have been just leave him in jail. Why did we let him out?
Yeah, that could be one solution, just to let him be in jail and let him just finish all his sentence. But it didn't happen. There are loopholes in our legal system that allows these criminals to be out before they finish their sentence. And it is a tragedy in such cases because victims, they are still living in those areas and they have to counter their perpetrators, on daily basis in some cases. And this is a tragedy on so many levels. But again, we have these politicians who are all talking and no actions. I think that is the problem we are having now. The complacent attitude on the part of our politician has emboldened Pakistan to go on threatening a country, that provides them all kind of assistance. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I say it's time for Britain to flex its muscles and put Pakistan in its place. Take this monster back. He's yours. We don't want him. Khadija, great to have her on the show, as always. The brilliant Khadija Khan there, journalist. Next up, after the news, we're going to talk to author, columnist, the Queen's former personal chaplain, Gavin Ashenden, about some of the big stories of the day and the decline of the Church of England. All of that next after the news, so stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight. Oh, by the way, in about 20 minutes or so, Angela Levin, a royal biographer, will join me. Lord Althorp, Diana's brother, Princess Diana's brother, has written a book about her. That's going to come out next month. It's the life and times of his famous sister. We will talk about that later. It might put a bit of a hole in Harry and Meghan's plans to make a documentary, and they want to make a big movie about Princess Diana. Well, maybe Charles Althorp has beaten them to it. So we'll talk about that in just a little while. First up, though, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with author, columnist, the Queen's former private chaplain, Gavin Ashenden. Hello, Gavin.
Hi, Kevin. Good afternoon.
Good to have you on the show. Before we get on to some of the more general issues, I thought about you at the weekend. I read my Sunday Times, which ran a pretty eviscerating report on the Church of England and the, as it said, the end, here endeth the rural vicar. And it cited one particular vicar who's typical of many now, who's in charge of 10 churches. And he says his whole life is just zooming around these churches, trying to give them a moment of life about once every 2 months so they can have a service and say vaguely they're still in operation. Around that church will be a village that has lost its church, that has effectively lost its village. So this isn't just about, if you like, the disintegration of the Church of England. I think this is about the disintegration of British or English rural country life. Villages without vicars, without churches, that lose something. They lose their central hub. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is it alludes to something we've talked about before. Now, these poor vicars with 10 churches to look after, churches that are literally falling down, crumbling, disintegrating, the ravages of time taking their toll. These vicars could be helped, so could all these churches, if the Church of England diverted the £100 million it's spending on compensation for 300-year-old slavery in Africa to its own churches and its own vicars. £100 million could help restore British rural life and the life of vicars, get villages to have their own vicars again. But no, the Church of England has better things to spend that money on. Slavery 300 years ago in Africa. I said this to you before, Gavin. I think this kind of wanton failure to look after its own churches, its own communities, by the Church of England is wicked. I think it's just horrifically wrong.
Kevin, I agree completely. And the whole of my life, we've seen this coming because the graphs have shown what's going to happen. And also other churches like the Methodists got into meltdown before we did. About 30 years ago, I went with an architect to see the church commissioners and make some suggestions about the way we reorganise our buildings and our resources in cities. I won't bother you with the details. They just told me to get lost. They weren't interested in this. It couldn't be done, they said. It couldn't be done at all. So one of the good things Justin Welby did, and he needs credit for this, is he looked at the 11 billion assets that the church commissioners have, and he said, we can change our own rules. And he got the rules changed, and he got a considerable amount of money out of that pot. The pot that they said to me could never, ever, ever be touched for complicated legal reasons I wouldn't understand. So when Justin Welby did that, he started turning a tap. Now, having turned that tap, that's where the 100 million is coming from. But the point is, the tap can be turned. They've got much more than that. They've got £11 billion. They could, if they wanted, say to themselves, well, we've been going 400 or 500 years. This is the biggest crisis we've ever faced. Let's throw everything into this and see if we can roll back and change the dynamics. Because after all, the great vision of the Church of England was that you'd have you'd have a clergyman for every single parish.
Yeah, exactly.
Acting in a whole series of different levels, but they won't do it because they're more interested in politics than they are in their own vision and organisation.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a house in the country up in Suffolk, and in this village. And I remember the old ladies in the village saying very excited, "Oh, we've got a service this weekend." You know, and it would be the first service they'd had in their local church for 8 weeks. So they were getting a service once every 2 months. As I say, that isn't just about a church, a single church disintegrating in its function to serve the village. That is about losing a vicar, losing a church, losing a sense of community. The Church of England has got the money and resources to solve this problem, to mend these churches, to have enough vicars, to repair these communities, and yet it's too busy spending the money on slavery in Africa 300 years ago. It's insane. It's insane.
It can't even exercise a bit of imagination, because each of these vicars with 10 churches is going by law to have to organise 10 annual general meetings, 10 annual reports, 10 series. So the fact is, in the past, vicars have done that. But you could easily set up an administrative group of executives who would deal with the admin of these local organisations, leaving the vicar free to be a vicar. You have to spend a bit more money on them. You have to employ people, but they're not willing even to do that. They're just letting the whole thing fall into a morass with clerical burnout and making dramatic gestures with the money to people who have no real claim on it.
Exactly right, Gavin. Now, I'm assuming, don't get me wrong, I'm assuming you are a man of letters. Did you, by any chance, go to Cambridge?
Well, I've got 4 degrees, but none of them are from Cambridge, as I happen.
Just the 4? Is that all you've got?
ran out of time and energy and brain.
I'm not even going to bother asking you any questions then. No, seriously, let's talk about Cambridge University. We've been discussing in this show last night's vigil for poor Jason Arday in Trafalgar Square. Guardian said tens of thousands of people turn up. I think fewer than 1,000 actually were there, but there was a crowd. They're all making speeches. I'll play you a few clips in a minute. And I think that they have created their own Jason Arday as opposed to the real Jason Arday. None of these speeches referred to his fantastical, frankly, laughable lies that he told about himself running 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg, starring in a TV show that was filmed 24 years before he was born, not being able to speak until the age of 18, all of this fantastical claptrap. None of them referred to that. They just said this man was a brilliant professor who was vilified, driven to his sad death by a racist media witch hunt. Now, that, frankly, is a lie. These people are gathering around a lie that they like, that they enjoy. They like the idea of a racist media hounding this poor, brilliant academic to his death. The thing is, he had 3 GCSEs. He wasn't really a genius. He was vaulted way above his position, way above his abilities, and it took a terrible toll. What do you make of these people gathering last night, making these speeches, celebrating a man who didn't really exist, celebrating their version of George Floyd? They've got their victim of racism hero, it's Jason Arday, and they're not interested in the truth about him. And the truth is, he was a vulnerable, very sad young fantasist who needed help.
One of our best poets, T.S. Eliot, had this great line: humankind cannot bear very much reality. Because if people get stuck into a kind of an idea that pleases them, well, it's a bit like intellectual pornography. They get addicted to it, and because it pleases them, they stick with it. I did some quick reading before I came on, because I've been writing about poor Jason. Do you know, he bless his heart, the only degrees he had were in PE. He was a PE teacher.
Yeah.
They took him from a PE teacher, and then he got a PhD in education, whatever education is. No one really knows. I'm not joking. I'm just saying it's a, and he then turned himself. He began to teach sociology at Cambridge. The poor dear man was trapped in a combination of other people's fantasies and his own fantasies.
Yes.
But it was a deadly combination. And the fact is that that anybody who plays a role in that fantasy well, frankly, becomes responsible for his breaking and his destruction.
Yeah,
because one of the things we have to do is we all of us have to work really quite hard in getting the map inside our own heads to be somewhat consistent with the map outside. It's not easy. It costs quite a lot. We have to change our minds. These are people who are not willing to pay any price at all for reality, and they won't change their minds.
Well, Diane Abbott led the speeches last night. There was a guy called Lord Woolley. He is the head of Jesus College in Cambridge. He called Jason Arday's death a public assassination, a lynching. I would suggest that Cambridge ought to have a look into this guy, because that is outrageous sensationalism and absolutely not true. But for your delectation, Gavin, here is a montage of some of the speakers last night.
Jason was suffering. We knew that he felt hounded by those rabid wolves. The dogs of hell started on Jason Arday because they couldn't handle a black man.
The legacy media crossed every line in the treatment of Jason. They were gleefully enjoying racialized harassment, which was started by an unapologetic ethno-supremacist.
The vicious media campaign drove him to his death. The newspapers printed 249 articles about him. This was a vicious campaign, but it wasn't just a campaign against the professor, it was a campaign against all of us.
It's extraordinary, that, Gavin. Just listen to those speeches. I mean, if you think of all the organisations who should be having a damn good look at themselves at the moment, that would be Cambridge University, that would be the charities that bought his story, that would be the publishing industry that published books about his fantastical nonsense, his life story that he invented. That would be the BBC, who made him a guest editor of the Today programme, its flagship news programme, and he was a regular on Laura Kunsberg's Sunday news show as well. All of those organisations, frankly, should hang their heads in shame, not because they're stupid and they utterly believe this man, but because they're stupid because they wanted to believe this man. The only entity in this sorry saga that emerges from it with its head held high is the damn media that I work for. We did our job. We found out that Cambridge University had behaved appallingly in over-promoting this guy, and we reported his fantastical story, which, let's face it, it all seems very sad and tragic now, but his stories were so fantastical, they were funny. All we did was report the facts, and yet those people last night that were called rabid wolves, the dogs of hell. It's absolute nonsense. The press, the media covered this story impeccably. Those idiots in Trafalgar Square are trying to turn it into something that it's not.
Well, they're desperate, because they've suddenly discovered that their attempts to take over our society have struck, if you like, the rocks of reality. The placard they have up there was "Rest in Power, Jason Arday." Someone who takes his own life under that kind of pressure, poor man. It's the very opposite of power. But they're so fixated on the idea of power and overturning our society with a form of inverse anti-white racism, that they're very, very angry. And their sense of unreality and rage and self-pity and self-righteousness is simply off the scale. And I mean, you can hear it. It's very uncomfortable to listen to. You feel very sorry for them, because the level of delusion is so high.
And do you know what it does? It patronises Jason Arday, because as I say, they are not making speeches about Jason Arday, the poor, vulnerable man. The tragedy of his life is off the scale. It's really, really sad. But none of them are talking about that. They're not talking about the real Jason Arday. They're talking about the Jason Arday they have created in their anti-racist minds. I think crowds like this, all they're doing really is signalling their own virtue. They're saying to people like you, me, especially the media, we're not racists. You are. You're racists, but we're not. He is just a totem for them, and they patronise him by removing his humanity and turning him into a mechanism.
The thing about virtue is you have to earn it. It costs a great deal in terms of self-awareness and dealing with the truth. These are people who want virtue without paying any price. In fact, they want other people to pay the price for it.
Yeah.
So in their level of comfort and self-delusion, they've taken to the streets to exercise this political power. And as you say, the people who are really abusing Jason's memory is them, because they're not dealing with a real person. They're dealing with a fantasy of their projected imaginations that they were hoping to gain more power with.
Indeed. Let me get you on a final point, sort of overarching sort of worldview, if you will, of Andy Burnham. This morning, you know, we're waiting for his plan to stop the boats. We're waiting for his plan to keep PC Andrew Harper's killers behind bars, neither of which he has. He doesn't have a plan for any of these important issues. This morning he crops up on TikTok, droning on about disabled bus fares and train fares, that from now on disabled people will be able to get cheap fares earlier than 9:30 a.m. Until now, they'd have to pay full price if it was before 9:30 a.m. I mean, this is sort of marginally quite nice, I suppose, but this is classic Burnham, isn't it? Finding a problem that nobody was thinking about, and nobody especially cares about, and then announcing, you know, I've found this terrible problem and I've solved it. Isn't that magnificent? While not solving the problems that we really want him to solve. This guy is a master deflector, isn't he?
He is. The problem is we've got to a point where our democracy no longer works. He's the front man for a system. It's not entirely clear who's running the system. It's I expect it's a complex combination of different factors, but he's not running it. He's there to give the appearance of democratic responsibility, and essentially the mainstream media essentially outside a very small group of responsible journalists, of whom you're at the forefront. They're cooperating with spinning a narrative that keeps people distracted. But the things that really matter to us, overcrowding, lack of social cohesion, this extraordinary invasion of immigrants, which our government is imposing upon us, these aren't allowed to be talked about, again, because Pache, the Jason Arday thing, they're racist, so we're not allowed to speak about them.
It's a disaster, it really is. Gavin, love having you on the show. That was great. Thank you so much. Gavin Ashenden there, author, columnist, used to be the late Queen Elizabeth's personal chaplain. I didn't bother asking about this, but for FYI, obviously he was C of E, but a few years back converted to Catholicism. I think you can probably work out some of the reasons why. He was just exasperated with a C of E that seems to be, you know, kind of committing suicide in front of us. I don't know what the hell it thinks it's doing. It's got, as Gavin said, it's got billions and billions of pounds, and yet it's letting all of its churches fall to rack and ruin, literally fall down, literally disintegrate. It's paring down the church to the extent that vicars are responsible for 10, 12 different churches. So these churches are dead in all but name. The Church of England authorities, the Archbishop of Canterbury, they could solve this. They've got the money, but they're too busy spending £100 million, all of their money on compensating for slavery in Africa 300 years ago. That, folks, is insane. That's what happens when the woke mind virus sends you crazy. It really is. OK, folks, next up, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, talk to royal biographer Angela Rayner about Charlie Althorpe's new book. He is, of course, the brother of Princess Diana, and he's written a book about her. It comes out next month. Sure, it'll be a bestseller. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election, is that an issue for you?
No. No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get. And so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, here's a blockbuster in the making. This is going to be a huge global bestseller. What's not to like? Earl Spencer, Charlie Althorpe, the brother of Princess Diana, has written a book about his sister. It's called Swan Song, Diana, My Sister. It's described as historic and extraordinarily moving. It's expected to cover Diana's childhood, her deeply unhappy 15-year marriage to the then Prince of Wales, Charles, and the febrile days following her shocking death in a car crash in Paris in August 1997. It's going to be a hell of a book. Let's talk to someone else who's written a royal book, royal biographer, Angela Levin. Hi, Angela.
Hello, nice to hear from you.
Always good to have you on the show, Angela. Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts, I think you and I both know this is going to be a global bestseller, isn't it? This is going to smash records, I think.
Well, I don't go how crazy a book will be if you say, I don't mind if it's full of errors, or when he says that he doesn't mind, I'm just going to say what I think my sister would say.
That's interesting, yeah.
I'm not actually keen about that. And somebody else has written that they think that it's very wrong that he and also Harry to write a book or to do this TV thing to actually make a sort of big fuss about her when in fact it should be very kind and easy. I don't think you should have somebody who didn't have much to do with his sister after the age of 5 to say he wants to know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, he says that the reason he's written this book, he's been inundated for many years for interviews, for facts about his sister. So he decided to write them all down or to write down his thoughts. And along the way, he doesn't mention that he's going to make quite a lot of money out of this, isn't he?
Well, he's very rich. He's going
to get even richer. He's going to get even richer.
Even richer, yes. I mean, I've written a book about Diana and her family, and that's a long time ago. And so I know quite a lot of how she behaved, and some of the time Charles did not behave well. This is Charles Spencer, not the King. And I don't know whether that is there because he was very unkind to her. And she took over as being a mother because her mother went off with another man. And she looked after him from the age of, he was 3 and 5 and she was 5. And he would scream in the nights and she would go and look after him. Is that in the book? I don't think it is. You know, we shall see.
Of course, he made that famous speech, didn't he, after his sister's death?
Yes.
You know, pointing the finger at the cruel royal family who had turned away, you know, not helped her while she was obviously in a bad state of decline. So he made that speech. He says this book will build on that. So it will continue this ongoing Althorpe feud with the royal family, a feud that, of course, has been fuelled by Harry and Meghan, particularly Harry, who is very much hooked up with Althorpe, and they've become a kind of double act, haven't they?
Yes, well, somebody who said, I was looking up the book, and they said, well, it looks very similar to what Harry said in his book, and I don't think he should have done that. So who knows? I haven't read it yet. I will get it to read it as soon as I can, and then I'll tell you whether it's all right or not.
Yeah. Now, one thing that will happen, Angela, this book, I think, might put a bit of a hole in Harry and Meghan's plans to make a movie, a film, a documentary about Princess Diana, about Harry's mother. I mean, they've had a march stolen on them with this book, haven't they?
I think that's very interesting, actually, because this will be coming out in September. And Harry and Meghan's doing it. Won't come out until for a year. Actually, on the anniversary of her 30th year of how old she would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew her fairly well, and she was a remarkable young woman. And the fact that she got so unhappy was because it was all done wrong for her. A very young girl, she wanted to go to dances and have fun, and Charles was not interested in dancing around and things. It was a very sad relationship.
Yeah, so Charles and Diana did not share a mutual love of Duran Duran, did they?
No, absolutely not. But it will be very interesting to see what he says and what he's done. I mean, he's not such a man who you can really trust. I mean, he's been divorced 3 times, and I just sort of think, hang on, read it yourself, Angela, and don't
give it
how it will be.
I agree with that. I've never particularly warmed to Charles Althorpe. He does come across to me as a typical entitled aristocrat who, peers down at the world from his lofty position as a kind of privileged owner of a stately home, if you see what I mean. But he's a published author. He's a good historian. He can write. So I think interest in this book will be massive, won't it?
Well, I think people will want to buy loads about it because they won't look at it in the sort of way I will, with every single detail. But I think to know about Diana again needs to be correct, and it needs to be warm. And I don't think it will be good if he attacks the royal family all the time, because it wasn't so terrible. It was just 2 people who weren't suited for each other.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, Angela, if you will. Explain why Charles and Diana were so unsuited, so unsuitable for each other, and why they had to get married. If they weren't, it was quite clear they were from different worlds. Why did they get married?
Well, the king and, well, not the king, he wasn't king, was it? The queen and her husband was very angry that very angry that Charles wasn't getting married because they wanted to have the heir. They were very keen that they got that, certainly, very young. And every girl that he used to have, they used to make him get rid of because it wasn't appropriate. And then they could see Diana. She was very beautiful. She was very nice. She used to go and have tea with the Queen, and a very nice girl. But she wasn't interested in reading heavy books or, being talking about things that are quite old.
She was a fun young woman, not a towering intellectual, whereas Charlie, by the way, also not a towering intellectual, but he wants to be, and he sticks his head into poetry books and Shakespeare and God knows what. So they were very unsuited, and it was always an accident waiting to happen, that marriage, wasn't it?
And she thought it was wonderful when he brought her lots of roses. And she never had that before, so she thought it was wonderful. She thought he was her prince, and she was very happy about that. So they got married, and the grandmothers were very, very keen on that. They felt they would get on very well, but they wouldn't really, not at all. She wasn't. Diana, having lost her mother left for another man, and it was very difficult for her to know how she could behave.
Yeah, and are there parallels to be drawn between Diana's unhappiness within the royal family and Meghan's subsequent unhappiness within that same family?
No, good question, but not at all. Diana wouldn't say one bad word about the Queen or anything that they did. She thought it was wonderful and she believed in the royal family. Meghan doesn't. Yeah. Meghan always wanted to be in charge and to know what she was going to do. So it's very different. I think Meghan got married so that she could learn a lot of things and make money. But I think Diana was very happy up to a certain point.
Indeed. And what do you make, Angela, of Harry's threat? I think I can put it that way. He seems to think that this recent chaotic, shambolic trip that he made back to Britain, bringing Meghan and the kids along latterly for this kind of covert secret visit to Highgrove House so the kids could see their granddad for the first time in 4 years. The whole trip was chaos. You know, the royal family didn't know where he was going. They had to withdraw their offer of accommodation in Buckingham Palace because he hadn't accepted it. He wasn't talking to them. The whole thing was a total mess. Harry apparently has concluded it was such a triumph that he sees it as a template for future regular visits. He now wants to come back every few months because this recent trip was such a triumph. Where did he get that idea from? It was a disaster.
I think it was all carefully worked out. He wanted to look very powerful with his father. He doesn't love him. He just wants his money and to pretend because of the title. And I think that he wanted to do very well like that. He could not come, he was coming, he's not coming, was coming. And so they would get very, very upset and muddled. That was just what he loved. Brilliant. And then the other thing that actually, why he thinks he's so clever is that he is someone who now we can't stop what he's doing. He can decide what he does. It's very difficult. He's a sort of person who's coming along. He can go and talk to places where he likes. He's done it before, these phony trips. Yep. And the king can't stop him. So it'll be very, very difficult because if he's doing these things from London or UK, the king will know and people will think that it's something to do with him. But Harry will go off and do what he wants with Meghan. And Meghan will not do the half in, half out. She wants to sell her as ever stuff, and you're not supposed to do that. So it is going to be horrendous. And I'm writing about why, for goodness sake, Charles, don't let him do it.
Yeah, I mean, his family, you know, Charles isn't that keen on him coming back, but he wants to see his grandchildren. So Charles alone in the royal family will go, OK, if you want to come over, bring the kids, fine. Camilla can't stand Harry or Meghan, so she doesn't want them back. The rest of the royal family don't want Harry to come back regularly, and the people of Britain don't want him to come back regularly. What that guy needs is something in his life, something to do. And because he has nothing to do, he fills it with the emptiness of these mad ambitions about coming back to Britain and all these stupid plans. People don't want him here. He should get used to that idea, shouldn't he?
In the Invictus Games, which he's absolutely obsessed with, which is next July,
I know.
he wants his father to give him absolutely that he will stand up
The
with him
validation of going to
all the way through. Now, his father's in his 70s. He's got cancer. Who would say that to their father if they cared about him? It's all about Harry. He wants to talk and talk and talk about it. So if it doesn't happen, he can go and say, what a father. I've always said he's never cared about me.
Right.
I mean, he's very careful at planning it. And I think it's really disgusting.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I suspect, I don't know this, but I bet you the King does not go to the opening of the Invictus Games. That's my prediction. But you and I will talk about it many times before it actually happens, Angela. Really good to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much. The brilliant royal biographer, Angela Levin there. Let's go to break. When we come back, I've got messages, I've got voice notes, and we're going to take some calls as well. So get on the blower, give me a call, 0344499 1000, or you can send a WhatsApp voice note and I'll read it out. I'll read some texts as well. All of that still to come. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's read a couple of messages. This is from Keith in Nottingham. So when Burnham decided to scrap charges on buses for the disabled, did he define what a disability was? Is it anyone on PIP or anyone with a bad headache? Probably both, Keith. Probably both. Good message that, though. Absolutely right. Yeah, he just sort of says things that sound kind of nice, doesn't he? No details ever. Here's Neil. Neil says there is no way Britain will play hardball by Pakistan. There are too many of Pakistani origin in local and central government. No one wants to upset them. I think you're probably right there. The Labour government is terrified of upsetting Muslims and, by extension, the Pakistani community. So they probably will be extremely cautious about upsetting Pakistan. But I say we should stamp our feet, show our authority and say, you're taking Shabir Ahmed back. And if you don't, we won't take any more of your people. Get that straight. Hit them hard. That's what I think. Neil says, remove visas and foreign aid to Pakistan. Simple. Exactly right. No more foreign aid, no more visas. Quite right, Neil. Very good. Margaret says, stop overseas aid to these countries that do not work with us. That's Pakistan that gets loads of foreign aid from us. Do you remember recently we found out they'd had something 50 million quid's worth of prophylactics, of contraceptives, apparently, from us, you know. Why? So yes, they get a lot of foreign aid. Take it away from them, no more visas. A lot of people saying this. What do we got here? Mark says, shut the doors, no audits, no investigations, just end the issuing of visas immediately and then start from scratch with a much more effective filter. I think that's good thinking there, Mark. Penny says, fabulous summer. I got loads of messages from people saying, yeah, we agree, it's a brilliant summer. It is, isn't it? People like Dale Vince, don't enjoy the summer. Be terrified. Be scared. Be frightened. You're going to die. The sun's shining. Life is over as we know it. Don't buy into that, honestly. I'm with Richard Tice, who said, why don't we just enjoy this? This is a nice summer. And I think Richard is right. Penny says, fabulous summer. Absolutely loving it. Just irritated by the hosepipe ban. What can you do, Penny? We have to put up with it due to a lack of infrastructure planning by government and water companies. Penny in Exeter there. Paul says, I enjoyed the summer, but I'm looking forward to the winter so I can have a barbecue in 6 foot of snow, but it might cause an alert if I melt the snow and cause a flood. Yeah, well, Paul, don't worry about that. There'll be an emergency alert on your phone unless you disable the emergency alert function, which apparently millions of people have done after last Friday. The warning that we're all sent. Mark says the heat deaths are like COVID deaths. Those who popped their clogs were probably on their last legs anyway. What you need is something like a 5-year average to see if there are any excess deaths caused by an extreme event, unless it's a volcano, of course. Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. That's exactly right. So when they go, 1,000 people died due to the heat wave, that's what Dale is saying. That isn't the information we were given. There are 1,000 deaths linked to the heat wave. That's very different. That's basically deaths in the heat wave that people try to say, well, it could have been the heat. They're talking about 100,000 deaths across Europe due to the heat wave, linked to the heat wave. It's rubbish. It's rubbish, absolute rubbish. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Joan in Sunderland. Hello, Joan. You want to talk about Jason Arday? Very sad case, but what would you like to say?
Hello. Yes, first of all, I would just like to say how saddened I am by the death of Jason Arday, but I was watching and listening to that
the vigil, you mean, in
the vigil,
yeah,
and that Lord whatever his name
Lord
is.
Woolley,
right, him.
Yeah, a public assassination, a lynching, that kind of language I think is disgraceful. He said that Jason Arday died due to a lynching. He didn't die due to a lynching, did he?
Well, that is what shocked me, really. He was talking about a lynching and assassination. Now, the thing you read out shortly afterwards about the press release, the two were entirely different. The tone was entirely different. And I don't like to hear that man and the language that he's using.
It's wrong. It's wrong. You know, that is grifter language. To call that a lynching, we know what we're talking about. He's alluding to the Ku Klux Klan there, lynching people of colour. That isn't what happened with Jason Arday, and they're trying to blame the press. The press and the media, Joan, are the only entity in this sorry saga that emerges with its head held high. All we did was report the story. Cambridge University, the charities, the publishing industry, the BBC, they gave us the story of all these idiots who chose to believe Jason Arday, poor Jason Arday's fantastical, ludicrous lies.
Well, talking about Cambridge University, they haven't entirely covered themselves in glory.
You could say that again.
What about checking all the references?
Well, they didn't, Joan, because they wanted to believe him. They didn't want to find him guilty of fabrication, of lying. So therefore, they never examined him. They never interrogated his application, his qualifications. He didn't have the qualifications. You know, he's got 3 GCSEs, some kind of PE qualification from Roehampton University, and then became a professor at Cambridge of the sociology of education, whatever the hell that is.
Yes, but I have 2 people in my family who are paying back student loans, thousands of pounds in student loans. It's unfair to the students. It's unfair to the young people who have this debt hanging around their necks if they're not getting what it says on the tin.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And, you know, Jason Arday, as I say, it's very sad what happened to him, but he was a fantasist who built his own story, earned a lot of esteem and respect because of it, and when that story came crashing down, disintegrated, he couldn't handle it. But the story was also created by the idiots at Cambridge University, the idiots at the BBC, the idiots in the publishing industry, the idiots in charities who all chose to believe his frankly unbelievable stories because it suited their purposes. They wanted to celebrate a brilliant young black professor, the youngest ever professor at Cambridge University. Turns out he had no right to be a professor there. Cambridge has demeaned itself, and we have been presented with a sad story that ended in tragedy. It's all wrong, Joan, it really is. Joan, excellent call as always. Good to talk to you. Joan in Sunderland there. Let's go to break. When we come back, more calls, more messages. Peter Cardwell will be in fairly soon to let you know what he's got lined up for your delectation. In fact, before we go to break, shall we listen to a voice note? This is Ian on the vigil in Trafalgar Square last night for Jason Arday.
Can you explain to me, so the so-called Lord who came out with those comments about lynching at the demonstration, which is a ridiculous demonstration anyway, how come he hasn't been pursued by the police when we had the lady who was in prison for making a tweet online and then deleting it? Now, her tweet went to various people. He actually, supposedly, according to The Guardian, there were 10,000 people there, plus I'm sure there was coverage, and he made the words lynching and all this kind of stuff. So he's inciting hatred and racial hatred. Why isn't he being arrested and pursued by the police? Once again, another example of double standards.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think he should definitely be talked to by Cambridge University. That kind of language is a bit OTT. Lynching, public assassination. The Press Association media edited that speech to take that incendiary line out. Well, we think they did. We've asked them and they haven't replied. But although I don't agree with that kind of editing, if that is the case, I can understand why they did it. They just felt that there's no justification, because there isn't, of this guy Lord Woolley, the chief, the head of Homerton College, calling Arday's death a public assassination and a lynching. That's juvenile, it's immature, it's wrong. Edited out. Let's go to break. When we come back, more of your calls, so stick around.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon, welcome to the programme, welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you, this is Talk Breakfast, I'm Mark Dolan.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm on the same side as Tim in Somerset. He says it has been a proper summer, fantastic weather, and spending evenings in the beer garden has been splendid. I don't remember a better one since 1976, although admittedly the humidity has been difficult to cope with at times. I wouldn't swap this for a normal British summer of rain, grey clouds and washed out weekends. I'm fed up with people moaning about how hot it is. Get a grip and enjoy it, as we may not have it again for another 50 years due to weather cycles. Exactly. I mean, if it was pouring with rain and grey, everybody, oh, it's terrible, what a terrible summer. And yet we get fantastic sunshine, solid sunshine for 2 to 3 months. And people start moaning, oh, we're all going to die. No, no, no. Richard Tice was right. People have enjoyed. Dale Vince and the gang don't like it, but people love this summer. I do, don't you? Let's listen to a couple of voice notes. Both on the poor deer, the stag, who was shot dead in Richmond Park after attacking a guy's picnic. This is Vicky.
I'm so very sad. This poor deer, it weren't only a deer, it's a stag, OK? It's a part of our wildlife. There was no malice there, OK? This man wasn't injured, he wasn't seriously hurt. Why on earth do you kill such a beautiful beast? Are here with us. Most definitely, we are here to protect them. Absolute disgusting behaviour. Oh, honestly, I'm so traumatised by this.
I am too, Vicky. I agree with you. Here's another voice note. I think it's on a slightly different tack. This is Jason on the deer that was shot dead in Richmond Park.
Kev, sorry, you're going round in circles now, because you understand that if an animal gets a taste for human blood, shark or a crocodile, then that's the decision they have to make. Otherwise, it may actually hunt humans because it's got a taste for it. And if this stag was dispatched, as you keep on saying, assassinated, killed with, it's obviously been made a very good decision. Not because of one man, oh, he took my sandwich. It's obviously something a bit more to it than that.
Well, Jason, you're entitled to your viewpoint. I've always questioned this assumption that human beings are preeminent. Anybody who threatens us, any animal that threatens us, has to be killed. This assumption of our superiority as a species, I think that's questionable. And I certainly don't think this deer should have been shot just because it upset some bloke's picnic. You know, it should have known the rules. It's not supposed to have a picnic 50 metres from the animals. It should have known it's an animal it can't read. Let's not kill animals like this, just knee-jerk. We always do it. Oh, look, a crocodile tried to attack a kid. Yeah, well, that's what they do. Let's kill it. You know, it's not good. It's ridiculous. Let's go back to the phones, shall we? Let's talk to Mandy in Felixstowe. Hi, Mandy. You want to talk about the deer?
Yeah, Kevin, it is heartbreaking, that poor animal. They were here long before then.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been there since 1670 or something. So they've been there a long, long time. About 600 deers. It's their environment. It's their park. Exactly. That's where they live. We should adapt to them, not the other way round. And you know, how can a deer be blamed for not understanding the rules about getting too close to picnickers in the park?
Like you said, can't read. I mean, where I live, I have muntjacs and foxes where we are, and they're lovely to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I just think we share this planet with animals, and we should be a little bit more accommodating and not stop blaming them just because they don't do exactly what we want. I just think it's wrong.
Another thing I've thought of, with all the heat wave, which I agree has been glorious, not being able to water anywhere, they're losing a lot of what they feed on.
Well, yeah, quite. Matt, I just think it's sad, and I just think we should, or the people at Richmond Park should think again. Just because an animal shows a slight amount of aggression in one instance to human beings, I don't think we should destroy it. I don't think we should kill it. You know, it's like, oh my God, he was slightly threatening to a picnicker. Kill that deer. No, Let it live, eh? Just a thought. Listen, really good to talk to you, Mandy. Thanks. Excellent call with you all the way. Mandy in Felixstowe. Let's now talk to Elizabeth in Chorley. Welcome, Elizabeth. You want to talk about Jason Arday? What would you like to say?
Hi. It is a very sad
Oh, it is, yeah, without a doubt.
debacle.
Yeah.
I will call it a debacle.
It is a debacle. That's what it is.
It is.
It's a massive mess now, Elizabeth.
And the thing is, why do people have to congregate in Trafalgar Square, Marble Arch, or wherever, and make it a public spectacle?
Well, I think, to be fair, they've got, public demonstrations, they're legal. They got the right to do this. If you listen to some of the speeches, frankly, they were perverse. They were absolutely strange.
You've got Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, Corbyn was there, of course.
You've got Diane Abbott.
Yeah, of course.
You've got Lord Woolwich.
All the usual suspects. Yeah, exactly right.
Where are they going with this?
They're going. They're condemning. They're blaming the press for all this. The only organisation, the only entity that has emerged from this sordid spectacle with its head held high is the media that reported a fantastical, strange story accurately. The media wasn't taken in by Jason Arday, but Cambridge University was, the publishing industry was, charities were, the BBC was. They all chose to be taken in by this fantastical liar. The media weren't. They weren't taken in. They reported this story accurately, and for that they are being held up as the villains of the piece by the great and the good. We've seen it all before, and we will see it again. It's a false narrative, though, Elizabeth. Good to talk to you. Great call. Thank you very much. Elizabeth in Chorley. Peter Cardwell is in the studio.
Hello there.
Pete. What do you got lined up on your show?
We'll be asking what on earth is going on in Reform UK. There are so many different thoughts about Zia Youssef, about Tim Montgomery, who's a noted commentator. We'll speak to one of their...
suspended, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's been suspended. We'll talk more about Jason Arday as well. Also, the Green Party WhatsApp group that discussed killing Zionists. We'll talk as well about